Chapter 37:37. Ling Han could not help but laugh. How could this Zhao Yongxi know that he was not a rich second generation, who could obtain the connecting device, when he had just entered the Foundation Establishment realm? They were both in the Heaven Foundation Establishment realm, and he could even defeat a 5-star genius in the Ultimate Foundation Establishment realm. What was this Zhao Yongxi? Come, you win if you can block 10 moves from me. Ling Han crooked his finger. Zhao Yongxi could not help but be furious. He was a famous figure among the younger generation of the Fei Yuan planet. His background was extraordinary, and because of this, his family rules were very strict. He was only allowed to obtain the connecting device after passing the spirit test and come into contact with the wider world. He was not allowed to come into contact with the star web immediately because he was afraid that his Dao heart would be unstable and he would lose his confidence after being beaten by even stronger geniuses. After the spirit test, his Dao heart would be stable. No matter how badly he was beaten, he would not lose his fighting spirit and become a useless person. Therefore, even though he was not ranked in the star web, in terms of real strength, he could be ranked in the top 20 of the Foundation Establishment realm of the Fei Yuan planet. This was because he was in the Heaven Foundation Establishment realm. When he reached the Ultimate Foundation Establishment realm, he should be the number 1 expert. After all, he was a 4-star genius, and there would only be one in every generation. Of course, in the star web, there were many 4-star geniuses, and there were even monsters that surpass 4-star. He was a great genius, a great expert, and someone actually said that he could defeat him in 10 moves? This was really funny, a big joke. Boasting shamelessly, he smiled coldly and then leaped forward, charging toward Ling Han. Brat, today, I will let you know the difference in strength. Remember this lesson in my name. Soon I, Zhao Yongxi, will be famous throughout the world. Ling Han stood still and did not move. When his opponent had reached him, he shot out a punch. Zhao Yongxi forcefully blocked it. Boom! The two forces collided, and his expression immediately changed. However, the vast energy had already surged over, and he was sent flying. In fact, there was no real collision of forces. It was just that the Star Web platform had simulated their mystic power, psychokinesis, and corresponding techniques. Why was it so real? That was naturally the means of a great emperor. Every ancestral king stood at the peak of the world, invincible in an era. Other than being unable to live forever, there was absolutely nothing they couldn't do. Ling Han shook his head and said, "That's all you have? You might not even be able to take 3 moves from me." He did not use his full strength. But even so, the power of his punch was still not something that Zhao Yongxi could contend with. Zhao Yongxi was a little startled. If it wasn't for the fact that Ling Han's number of battles couldn't be faked, he would have suspected that a cauldron casting realm, or even stronger genius, was suppressing his cultivation to fight him. Why are they so strong? He was already a super rookie. How could anyone be more outstanding than him? Zhao Yongxi did not believe this. With a loud roar, he once again charged towards Ling Han. Ling Han absent-mindedly stretched out his hand to press, control, and block. Yet he easily blocked all of Zhao Yongxi's attacks. Moreover, every time he blocked an attack, he would still have the remaining strength to strike back at Zhao Yongxi, causing him to feel extremely uncomfortable. 9 moves, he said with a smile. Zhao Yongxi didn't say anything. He already knew that it was impossible for him to defeat Ling Han. His only hope was to withstand 10 moves from Ling Han. That way, at least he wouldn't lose completely. Ah! He roared, and channeled his most powerful celestial technique. High-level energy surged, and his right hand actually transformed into an azure dragon head that blasted toward Ling Han. Ling Han also became a little more serious. He executed the demon monkey fist, and blasted it toward Zhao Yongxi. Bang! The demon monkey fist raised boundless mighty force, and it wasn't something that Zhao Yongxi could resist. With a single strike, he was blasted away. His body turned into shattered light, and immediately disappeared. Congratulations on obtaining the first victory. You have obtained 10 grades from this battle. The ranking will be updated 7 hours later according to your grade. The basis of matching in the ranking battle was points. It would always be a battle between people with similar points. Those who were stronger would rapidly rise up, while those who weren't would be stuck at a certain number of points. This was because points would be deducted if one lost. Of course, people like Zhao Yongxi had 0 points to begin with, so there wouldn't be a situation where he would have negative points. Ling Han also left the battle area. He returned to his room and continued to queue up for the ranking battle. Another hour or so passed. According to the arena's rules, the ranking battle was only valid for the first 3 battles every day. After that, no matter who won or lost, points wouldn't be added or deducted. It was the same for the opponents. This ranking battle was matched according to points. If one defeated someone with a higher ranking than oneself, the points obtained would correspondingly be a little more. And if one lost to someone with a lower ranking, the points deducted would also be a little more. Someone had calculated that even if one maintained an undefeated record, it would take at least a year to enter the top 1,000 if one fought 3 battles every day. If one could directly challenge others, a newcomer might immediately become the strongest person in the ranking. However, there was too much exaggeration in this. Now that the ranking battle could guarantee that one could enter the top 1,000 or 10,000, they were definitely true geniuses. Ling Han ran to the forum to take a look and realized that there were many posts on it. They were all targeting his desertion and expressing strong disdain for him. He went to open another arena, but no one came to accept the challenge. Instead, they sent him private messages and insulted him, forcing Ling Han to activate the function of only receiving private messages from friends. Only then did it quiet down. He had only gone to fight in the ranking battle, but he was actually seen as abandoning the battle and becoming a deserter. Forget it, he had also earned quite a lot of universe dollars today. Furthermore, as an expert, he couldn't always hang around at this level. It would lower his level, and it wouldn't be easy to earn big money in the future. Ling Han didn't log out of the Star Web platform. Instead, he went to the elixir store. There were many alchemists selling elixirs here. As long as you paid, you could directly find someone to pick up the goods. Of course, you could also choose to let them send it over, as long as the place you were at had a galactic-grade teleportation formation. The teleportation fees were at your own expense. Alchemist was a very scarce occupation, and the appearance of the Star Web was very beneficial to alchemists. It allowed the limited resources to be fought over by more people, which naturally increased the status of alchemists. What Ling Han wanted wasn't elixirs, but a suitable elixir recipe. Elixir recipes were unique. As long as it appeared once on the Star Web platform, only the first seller could continue selling it. The others would be considered as pirated copies, and if discovered, there would be heavy penalties. Ling Han was searching for the elixir recipe that was most suitable for him. Firstly, he was only at the foundation establishment stage and had limited spiritual energy. He could at most refine 2-star elixirs, which was suitable for the cast tripod realm. This was a huge limitation. Secondly, he wanted to find an elixir recipe that few other alchemists could refine. This way, when he refined the same batch of elixirs, the benefits would be 10 times, or even 100 times better than other alchemists of the same grade. It shall be you. Chapter 37-38. Foundation Transforming Pill. Ling Han chose this pill recipe. He believed that this pill recipe would bring him an astonishing amount of wealth. What was a foundation transforming pill? After consumption, it could dissolve the foundation of immortal Tao. Then wouldn't this thing be no different from poison to martial artists? Why would Ling Han choose it? That was because when one broke through to foundation establishment, they needed to first dissolve their own foundation of immortal Tao, and the foundation transforming pill could be of great help. For example, to break through from human foundation to heaven foundation, one had to first disintegrate the foundation of humanity, then use it as the core to forge a new foundation of immortal Tao. There was a problem. The foundation of immortal Tao was extremely sturdy, and some people didn't have the ability to shatter it. This wasn't a fight where one could forcefully shatter the foundation of immortal Tao. Therefore, the foundation transforming pill could be of great help. Moreover, the foundation transforming pill could also remove impurities, further purifying the foundation of immortal Tao. Many foundation transforming pills could be consumed to purify the foundation of immortal Tao step by step. The Heaven Foundation transforming pill created this way would definitely be more flawless and perfect. The more perfect the foundation of immortal Tao, the greater the suppression effect on other foundation of immortal Tao, and the greater the immunity against high-level foundation of immortal Tao, or even immortal cauldrons. For example, Ling Han's foundation of immortal Tao was extremely perfect, and even saints couldn't suppress it. Once his foundation of immortal Tao appeared, which foundation establishment cultivator's strength wouldn't decrease sharply. After saying so much, the effects of the foundation transforming pill were obviously clear. But the problem was, since this pill was so useful, there should be many alchemists who concocted it, right? Once his foundation of immortal Tao appeared, which foundation establishment cultivator's strength wouldn't decrease sharply. This was about one of the raw materials of the foundation transforming pill. Actually, it couldn't be called a raw material, but when concocting the foundation transforming pill, alchemists needed to integrate a trace of their own immortal foundation power. This was crucial. Without this immortal foundation power, the foundation transforming pill would be a useless pill. This determined that only foundation establishment level alchemists could concoct the foundation transforming pill. But here came the problem. This foundation transforming pill was extremely difficult to concoct. Usually, only earth-grade alchemists had enough skill to concoct it. Alchemists also had cultivation requirements. For example, Ling Han was so monstrous in alchemy, but now he could at most concoct human-level middle-grade celestial pills. And if he wanted to become an earth-grade alchemist, he had to at least have a cultivation of life core tier. Earth-grade alchemists did not have the power of immortal foundation, so how could they refine the foundation transforming pill? The foundation transforming pill was very expensive, and there was no market for it. This was because only a limited number of genius alchemists could refine it, and the foundation transforming pills that they refined were not for sale at all. Even their own forces were in short supply, so how could they sell them? Ling Han smiled. I'm the only one who can earn this money. He bought the pill recipe for the foundation transformation pill. This pill recipe was not too expensive, only 500 universe credits. Looking at the required materials, Ling Han grimaced. It was impossible to gather them on heavenly starry sky. Fortunately, isn't there the star web? Ling Han could purchase it on the star web and have someone send it directly to Heavenly Sea Planet through a teleportation formation. But there were two problems. First, the credibility of the seller. Would he not deliver the goods after receiving the money? Second, even if the other party delivered the goods, the teleportation formation was not owned by his family. What if it was taken away by others? Of course, Ling Han could also go to the seller's celestial body through a teleportation formation, or a shuttle to pick up the goods directly. But if he went around in circles, the costs would far exceed the value of the foundation transforming pill. Otherwise, it would take too long, and the loss would outweigh the gain. Although Heavenly Sea Planet has recovered, it was destroyed in ancient times. In the end, it can't be compared with a real big planet. Ling Han sighed. Moreover, now that the major forces were entrenched, all kinds of immortal medicines were hoarded by themselves and were not sold at all. Even if there were the materials he needed, it would be useless. It seemed that Heavenly Sea Planet was still not suitable for cultivation. Those below the immortal path could quickly rise, but after reaching the foundation establishment stage, the shortcomings were obvious. The Star Web platform had a mechanism to ensure the safety of the goods. After the buyer chose to buy, he would first swipe the money through the Star Web platform, and then the Star Web platform would be responsible for delivering the goods. After the goods arrived and passed the inspection, the money would be transferred to the seller. During this process, the Star Web platform did not charge a service fee, but it did charge a delivery fee. However, this method was only limited to the forces of the Chang family on the celestial body, because only goods entered the teleportation formation, and they only needed to receive the goods from the teleportation formation on this side. Why didn't anyone rob the goods of the Chang family? What kind of existence was the Chang family? An imperial family. Moreover, who would rob the goods of the Chang family? Weren't they afraid that the Chang family would ban them and make them unable to connect to the star web forever? Unfortunately, there was no Chang family force on Heavenly Sea planet. Unfortunately, Ling Han could only go to other big planets in the future and purchase all the materials at once. Then, he would refine the foundation transforming pill there and sell it through the star web. Anyway, he did not have to bear the transportation problem. In this way, he only needed to teleport himself twice, and the cost would be greatly reduced. No matter what, he could still make a profit. After browsing for a while, an hour finally passed. He queued up and entered the arena for the second ranking battle. This time, his opponent was not a pure newcomer, but with such a low ranking, how could he be a match for Ling Han? With just a gentle wave of his hand, Ling Han ended the battle. This time he obtained 11 points. It was obvious that the opponent this time was weak. So why did Ling Han obtain more points? It was because the second opponent had a higher number of points. Wasn't this unfair? A little. But compared to the overall mechanism of the points allocation battle, this bit of unfairness had no effect. Ling Han continued to queue up. There were 3 battles a day, and he had to complete them all. He had time again, and went to the strength hall. This was a place to test one's strength. Previously, it was said that the 3 super newcomers, Heaven Breaker, First Beginning and Myriad Dao, had repeatedly broken ancient records, including the strength hall's extreme strength. To enter this place, one had to pay extra money. This was because the test required the soul to take form, and one had to imitate a martial artist's strength and moves. This would consume extra energy, so naturally, there was a fee. So be it. This was the same as the arena, and it cost 1 cosmic dollar a day. It was very shady. After paying, Ling Han entered the strength hall. There were 9 ranks of the immortal path, but there were only 8 branches here. They corresponded to the 8 ranks from Foundation Establishment to Nirvana. Only the Ancestral Monarch realm was missing. After becoming an Ancestral Monarch Great Emperor, the Star Web was unable to imitate a Great Emperor's strength. Moreover, an Ancestral Monarch was invincible. There could only be one in each era. So what was the point of testing one's strength? Number 1 in the present age. Even if all the previous Ancestral Monarchs were added up, there would only be a few. Of course, Ling Han entered the Foundation Establishment branch. He took a look. Although this was a strength hall, there were various types of strength tested. Fist strength, leg strength, explosive power, and so on. The most limitless was explosive power. No matter what method one used to attack the machine, as long as the value was high enough, one would be able to appear on the rankings. In this category, First Beginning's name was high up. Chapter 3740. What an arrogant tone. Ma Ning clenched his teeth full of jealousy. He didn't break the record, and was far from the list, but Ling Han easily reached the 76th place. Even if he was arrogant, his strength was still there. There was no way to fight here. So Ma Ning didn't have to worry about Ling Han's strength crushing him. What, you want to beat me? Ling Han didn't bother to pay attention to him. He was a little surprised. Even though he didn't use his full strength, he only reached the 76th place. If his thoughts were known by others, he would definitely be cursed to death. You casually punched into the 76th place. What else do you want? Do you want to be number 1? Ling Han gathered some power and used the beast monkey fist. Pung! He once again landed a blow on the strength measuring machine. 98,634. On the dynamometer, a terrifying number stopped, and Ling Han's name jumped from the 76th place to the 9th place. Crazy. Ma Ning and the others opened their mouths wide, completely speechless. Even though this was only the current ranking of the explosive power of the Heaven Building Foundation, to be able to enter the top 9, how amazing was this result? Come and see. A super badass appeared in the Building Foundation Power Club. Ma Ning and the others weren't the only ones here. It was just that the others didn't test their explosive power. But Ling Han made it into the list twice. The number was so big, how could no one see it? Maybe some people missed it the first time, but the second time was definitely witnessed by many. After calling for friends, people appeared one after another. This was the Star Web. Through the means of the Great Emperor, Countless people's souls were connected across the universe. Naturally, they could reach each other with just a thought, without any sense of distance. In just a short while there were countless people here. Fortunately, this was virtual. Once there were more people, the venue would automatically enlarge itself, so there was no need to worry about crowding. The first under the starry sky. Damn, how arrogant. Hey, I know this person. He was just fighting in the ring. That's him. Hey, didn't this guy run away at the last minute? Yeah, he met Guan Xian. And he didn't even dare to fight. Wait, that Guan Xian who ranked more than 90 million? That's him. Hehe. This fellow's explosive power is already ranked 9th on the Heaven Foundation list. And you're telling me that he'll be afraid of someone who's ranked over 90 million on the star web? To be able to rush into the top 9 with explosive power at the Heaven Foundation establishment stage, this kind of battle prowess could be ranked quite high even among extreme Foundation establishment stage cultivators. At the very least, it wouldn't be a problem for him to fight someone who was ranked in the 90 million. Desertion at the last minute, what a joke. It seems like this guy is still coming. Everyone saw Ling Han raise his fist again. No way, 9th place isn't enough? Boom, Ling Han punched out. This time, he wrapped his fist with the heavenly Dao flame, and the star web would simulate it. Another punch landed on the strength measuring machine, and the numbers started to sway. 138,621. It had reached a new high. Oh my god, almost 140,000. This guy's battle prowess can probably crush 99% of Foundation establishment cultivators. Whoever dares to say he's a coward, I'll drown that Guan Xian with my spit. That's terrifying. 140,000 standard force. Even among extreme Foundation establishment cultivators, he'll probably be ranked in the top 1,000. Yes, someone did an experiment before. 100,000 standard force for Heaven Foundation establishment stage is equivalent to 10,000 standard force for extreme Foundation establishment stage. This result can definitely put him in the top 1,000 of the extreme Foundation list. Everyone was shouting and feeling their scalps go numb. Ma Ning and the others were completely silent, and they retreated to the side with their tails between their legs. In front of them was a rising star that could illuminate the universe. Compared to him, they were just a fart. What's his rank? Number 2. Oh my god. It was impossible to be number 1, because the first place would always be number 1. Regardless of whether the record holder was a Foundation establishment cultivator or an ancestral king, the record would never be removed. Countless years had passed, and countless prodigies had pushed this record higher. To reach the top, one had to surpass all the prodigies in history. Was that even possible? The super monster Shi had just appeared, and he even surpassed many ancestral kings back then. Could someone even more monstrous come out? What a pity. Yes, if this person appeared before Shi, then he might really be able to surpass all the others and become number 1. But now, he can only settle for number 2. However, being number 2 under the starry sky is still extremely awesome. He's unlucky to have met Shi. Hehe. There's also Myriad Daos and Heavenbreaker. Although they were suppressed by Shi in terms of power, they broke the record in terms of speed and perception. Their overall strength is not weak at all. It's a tragedy for every prodigy to be born in the current era, especially with those 3 monsters. Everyone shook their heads. Ling Han's result was indeed amazing, but now there was a monster like Shi who firmly suppressed him. In the past, it was enough to reach number 2 because the number 1 was already an almighty, who had passed away countless years ago. But it was different this time. Shi was still alive and well, and he was only at the extreme Foundation establishment stage. Ling Han was also a little surprised. He used the demon monkey fist and the heavenly flame, but he still couldn't reach number 1. This Shi was really strong. Again, Ling Han used the demon monkey fist again, this time with 108 frequency attacks, and the heavenly flame. Boom, he smashed heavily on the dynamometer. 195,574. Everyone was petrified again, unable to say a word. As it turned out, a standard force of over 130,000 was not Ling Han's limit. This guy had almost blasted out a standard force of 200,000. This kind of explosive power can rank around 800 among the extreme foundation establishment stage. Oh my god, the Heaven Foundation establishment stage is so strong. Of course. Don't you know that Shuri hit 300,000 standard force? Enough to rank 120 to 130 on the extreme foundation list? In comparison, this person is still much weaker. Yes indeed. Everyone regained their ability to speak. But even if Ling Han was not as strong as Shuri, he was still extremely terrifying. Because of this, more people appeared, all of them crazy. Guan Xian had also arrived. Yet he was spouting nonsense, making a big deal out of Ling Han's previous fear of battle, desperately trying to make himself look good. Ling Han, on the other hand, was shocked. This Shuri was so strong that he could hit 300,000 standard force. This was 50% more than him. Ling Han took a deep breath. It seemed that he needed to go all out. Shuri could surpass the ancient prodigies not because they were weak, but because he was too freakish. Ling Han used the 3 forms of the war god. At the same time, he activated the destructive power and simulated the 2 immortal Tao Foundation stones inside his body, releasing their power together. He used his ocular technique to search for weak points on the dynamometer's surface, which would allow him to unleash more destructive power. Chapter 3741. Come. Ling Han's figure charged out, and he delivered his 3 strongest attacks. 3 styles of the war god. The first strike. Hong. Ling Han's palms struck furiously, landing on the strength measuring machine. A number jumped up, but it only showed over 200,000. Before it stopped, Ling Han unleashed the second style of the 3 styles of the war god. Bang! This time, the number on the dynamometer soared to over 290,000. First. Fuck, I've surpassed Shuri. First of all time. Oh my god, I must be dreaming. Shuri's record has been broken, and a new first of all time has been born. Holy crap, records get harder and harder to break. Shuri broke the record from 300 million years ago. But now his record has only been maintained for a little more than a year. First under the starry sky. Everyone was in a frenzy. Although Ling Han had only surpassed Shuri by a tiny bit, he had still surpassed Shuri. The strongest record since the ancient times could only be surpassed by a tiny bit. Otherwise, where would the previous generations of geniuses stand? However, this wasn't the end. Ling Han unleashed the last style of the war god's 3 styles. The instant his palms slammed onto the dynamometer, he opened his mouth and spat out a golden sword. Boom! It was as if the entire star web was shaking. An even higher number popped up. 312,526. Fuck. In an instant, the people who were so excited that their scalps went numb were petrified again, unable to utter a single word. The record had been broken again. Ling Han had broken the record that he had just created, and the previous record was definitely the shortest-lived record in history. It had only existed for a mere second. It had broken 300,000. Throughout history, in order to rank first on the Heavenly Foundation list, one had to unleash a standard force of over 200,000. It was just that the higher the record, the harder it was to break it. Even Shuri, the previous first of all time, only managed to unleash a standard force of over 290,000. However, Ling Han had managed to push this record to 300,000 in a short while. Everyone looked at Ling Han with worshipful gazes. He was the number 1 throughout the ages. Even the ancestors and saints of the past had been surpassed by Ling Han. Being number 1 in the Heaven Foundation doesn't mean anything. You know, a lot of ancient monarchs have never been number 1. Some were only in the top 10, but in the end, they suppressed all the other heaven's favorites and became the ruler of an era. Someone deliberately belittled Ling Han. If you have the ability, go and create a record. If you don't have the ability, then stop grumbling. This is the number 1 throughout the ages, surpassing all geniuses of the past. No matter what, he is worthy of respect and praise. Not bad. There was no need for Ling Han to say anything. Immediately, there were many people targeting him, and the person who spoke just now was flushed with embarrassment. On the dynamometer, Ling Han's name was replaced. Number 1 under the starry sky shone brightly. Needless to say, These 6 words were enough to explain everything. Number 1 under the starry sky has broken the Heaven Foundation explosive power record. Special reward of 1,000 universe dollars. A cold voice sounded, but it instantly spread throughout the entire star web. It was the soul of the interstellar web. What? The Heaven Foundation explosive power record has been broken? You must be joking. Wasn't it broken just over a year ago? Even the soul of the star web is announced to the entire platform. It can't be fake. This number 1 under the starry sky is really awesome. But then again, this guy's confidence is off the charts. He actually dares to call himself number 1 under the starry sky. In terms of explosive power alone, he is indeed the number 1 in the Heaven Foundation. This caused a huge uproar on the star web. Everyone began to search for this number 1 under the starry sky, to be able to break the eternal record. Although it was only one item, if it was spread throughout the universe, Ling Han's record would be maintained for hundreds of millions of years, or even longer. Everyone was dumbfounded after a quick check. It turned out that this number 1 under the starry sky had just entered the star web. Comparing oneself to others was really infuriating. They had struggled on the star web for God knows how long, but they hadn't broken a single record. But look at Ling Han. He had only entered the star web for one day, but his name had already shaken the world. Ling Han, on the other hand, gritted his teeth. Now that he was exposed, how was he going to earn money in the arena? Who would fight him? Yes, he could only count on those who had reached the extreme foundation. However, the Chang clan was really stingy, only giving 1,000 universe dollars for breaking a record. He had blamed the Chang clan wrongly. The various settings of the star web were decided by the 4 great emperors back then. The Chang clan only had power, but they couldn't interfere with the operation of the star web. The soul of the star web was the true ruler. To the 4 great emperors, the glory of breaking a record naturally surpassed everything. 1,000 universe dollars was just a gesture. Who knew that Ling Han was poor? To him, giving more universe dollars was the way to go. However, many a little makes a mickle. If he broke a few more records, his gains wouldn't be small either. He left the strength test machine to find new opportunities to make money. If others knew what he was thinking, they would definitely curse him. No matter what record you broke, as long as you exposed your identity in the real world, which great sect wouldn't rush over to take you in as a disciple? Such a talent would be tempted even by the emperor clans. Ling Han arrived in front of the fist strength record. The 3 forms of the war god was a palm technique. If he used the demon monkey fist now, could he break the record again? The holder of this record was also Shi. Before Ling Han could make a move, a person strode over. The others all scattered to make a path for him. This was because this person was a true self-realm expert. Planet Feng Nan's Li Leidong, a true self-realm expert. The Li clan is a sect master level force. Wrong. The Li clan's genius just broke through to the 4 extremities realm not long ago, and became a sovereign. The Li clan is now a sovereign level force. No wonder he dared to come and recruit him. I was thinking that even the current sect master level forces wouldn't dare to recruit this person. Everyone nodded. Sect master level forces were indeed extraordinary, but they still didn't have the qualifications to take in a genius who broke the record. Even if such an existence couldn't become an ancestral emperor, he had a high chance of becoming a saint. Sect master level forces weren't enough. Li Leidong arrived in front of Ling Han and smiled. Young man, are you interested in joining our Li clan? Haha, how can the Li clan compare to our Wang clan? Another voice rang out as a middle-aged man walked out from the crowd. Wang Jian. Li Leidong's eyes narrowed. The Wang clan was a powerful clan on planet Yongmeng, and they had an old sovereign who had reached the 4 extremities realm tens of thousands of years ago. Li Leidong, your Li clan has just become a sovereign level force. Compared to my Wang clan, you're too weak, Wang Jian said arrogantly. Chapter 3742. Li Leidong snorted. My Li family's venerable is a genius. Although he has just become a venerable, his future is limitless. It's not impossible for him to become a saint. Ha ha ha. Wang Jian laughed. You're making me laugh. Do you think saints are cabbages? Any genius would have to bow their heads in front of a saint. To become a saint requires not only talent, but also luck. Wang Jian, do you dare to look down on my venerable? Li Leidong said with a murderous tone. Wang Jian didn't reply. The Wang family could fight against the Li family, and even be a bit stronger. But he absolutely couldn't speak rudely to a supreme expert. Otherwise, if the supreme expert of the Li family made a move and killed him, no one would avenge him. The strong needed to be respected, especially those at the sect master level. They couldn't be slandered by the weak. Young man, what do you choose? Wang Jian looked at Ling Han. What was the point of fighting with Li Leidong? Join the Li family, and we'll guarantee you cultivation resources, Li Leidong quickly said. Haha, how can a newly promoted venerable compare to my Wang family? Wang Jian snorted. Ling Han didn't want to pay attention to anyone. He yearned for freedom, and would never join any power. Could the resources of these powers be taken for free? Everything had a price. There was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. He activated the demon monkey fist, and infused it with destructive energy. Then he rushed out and punched. Pung! The dynamometer immediately displayed a number, and it started to jump rapidly. More than 280,000. This was on the list, but it didn't break the record. The first place was still Shuri. Haha, Shuri broke the record with his fist technique, reaching 290,000 standard force, someone said. So that was how it was. Although Ling Han broke the record for explosive force, it didn't mean he was number one in all aspects. Young man, we're talking to you. Li Leidong shouted angrily. This little Heaven Foundation establishment cultivator dared to ignore him. Who did he think he was? So what if he broke the record? His cultivation was too low. In this world, no matter how much of a genius you were, you had to respect the strong. Ling Han just glanced at him, and turned to leave. Since he couldn't break this record, he would break other records. There were all kinds of records here anyway. Stop right there. Li Leidong roared. Ling Han pretended not to hear anything, and continued to move forward. I told you to stop, Li Leidong said word by word. He was angered by the young man in front of him. Ling Han had this kind of ability. He could easily enrage others, even if this person was here to recruit him. Ling Han still didn't pay attention. He saw the record of leg strength, but the record was not set by Shuri, but by a man named Hengshan. Hengshan was a saint, but he had already passed away. It was rumored that he was an outstanding genius in the past, a strong contender to become an emperor or ancestor. From the fact that he had created a record for the strength of his legs, one could tell that he indeed possessed astonishing talent. Unfortunately, being stunned for a moment didn't mean that he would be stunned forever. Hengshan Sage still lost in the end, and stopped at the Sage realm. Then let's try this record. Ling Han tried, but although he easily entered the list, he still couldn't break the record. He sighed. Even though he had broken the eternal record of explosive power, when it came to fist strength, leg strength, and other aspects, he was still not the strongest throughout the ages. This was because he hadn't reached the peak of Heaven Foundation, and his fist and leg techniques weren't strong enough. Let's take it slow. Breaking all the records in one day was quite boring. You! Li Leidong roared from the side. He was already furious. Ling Han glared at him and said, What are you shouting for? If you're not convinced, let's fight at the same level in the arena. If you can block 10 moves from me, you win. Li Leidong wanted to agree, but as soon as he opened his mouth, he forcefully swallowed his words. In a battle at the same level, who could be a match for the guy with the strongest explosive strength in history? He wasn't just the strongest in the present age, but the strongest in all of history. The value was completely different. If he agreed stubbornly, he would only be humiliating himself. Ling Han's heart skipped a beat. He received another notification from the star web. It had been an hour since he had queued up, and he could fight in the ranking battle. Confirm. Xiao. Ling Han suddenly disappeared into thin air, and appeared in the arena. His opponent was a young girl, and when she realized that her opponent was Ling Han, she couldn't help but scream, "You're the strongest person in the universe. The one who just broke the Heaven Foundation explosive strength record." The young girl was so excited that her words were somewhat incoherent, and her eyes were shining. "I worship you so much, you're my idol." Ling Han couldn't help but sweat. "We're fighting right now." "Idol, how could I be your opponent?" The young girl hurriedly said. "Idol, let's take a photo." She moved over and paid for the star web to turn on the recording function. Then, she circled around Ling Han and posed in all sorts of positions. After a long time, she was finally satisfied and automatically admitted defeat. Her figure instantly disappeared. In this battle, Ling Han still obtained 11 points. He thought about it and logged out of the star web platform. Phew, Ling Han stood up and pushed the door open. In just a short span of 2 hours, he had already set off a storm on the star web. Now, everyone would remember the strongest person in the universe, and there would definitely be countless forces looking for him. Ling Han found Lin Luo and the others, and they became friends on the star web. He then transferred some universe dollars to each of them. Following this, Ling Han believed that Lin Luo and the others would also stand out on the star web and become the generation of supernovas. The connector itself had the function of an optical computer, and it could store information. As long as it was downloaded, it could be viewed even if it couldn't connect to the star web. However, with Ling Han's memory, he naturally didn't need to specially turn on the optical computer to look at the pill recipe for the Foundation transformation pill. He only needed to recall it in his mind, and the pill recipe clearly appeared for him to simulate refining. After an hour, Ling Han believed that as long as he had the raw materials, he would at most fail once or twice, and after summarizing his experience, he would be able to refine the pill successfully. The night passed quietly, and the next morning, after Ling Han finished his cultivation, he began to practice the Demon Monkey Fist. Monkey Bro's ancestor was an ancestor king who was invincible for an era. The Demon Monkey Fist that he created was naturally a dignified emperor technique. In the world of emperors, who was weaker than who? If he could break the record with the 3 styles of the war god, why couldn't he use the Demon Monkey Fist? It wasn't that the Demon Monkey Fist was weak, but that he couldn't unleash the true power of the Demon Monkey Fist. "Let's go find Monkey Bro," Ling Han murmured. "Firstly, I've already entered the Foundation establishment stage, and my formation skills have greatly improved. I'm qualified to try and break an immortal grade formation. Secondly, I still have the chaotic extreme thunder pagoda, which should be of help to Monkey Bro. Let's see if I can help Monkey Bro escape this time." Chapter 3744. Brother Monkey roared. A ray of golden light emerged from the top of his head and transformed into a little monkey. It flew toward the chaotic Polaris Thunder Tower. Ling Han suddenly remembered and said, "Brother Monkey, there's still the heavenly Tao fire in the tower. This fire could even burn a supremacy to death." He didn't want to accidentally kill Brother Monkey. Squeak! Brother Monkey quickly stopped. The little monkey flashed and rushed back into Brother Monkey's body. "Really?" Brother Monkey asked. Ling Han nodded. "When I was forging the chaotic Polaris Thunder Tower, I went to the place with the heavenly Tao fire." "Yes, without the heavenly Tao fire, it's impossible to forge the shape of the Mother Gold." Brother Monkey nodded. "After I forged the sovereign weapon, I used the internal space of the sovereign weapon to store some of the heavenly Tao fire. However, after the heavenly Tao fire was stored, its power was greatly reduced. It could only burn supremacies to death," Ling Han said. The corner of Monkey King's mouth twitched when he saw how arrogant he was. He was only a sect leader. Even in front of the weakened version of the heavenly Tao fire, he could only kneel. "It'll be easy if you have the heavenly Tao fire. Second brother, go to the top of the mountain and pour the heavenly Tao fire out," Brother Monkey said. Ling Han was startled and asked, "Will that hurt you?" "It's okay. The heavenly Tao fire can easily burn this formation. Before the fire reaches me, I'll be free," Brother Monkey said proudly. Monkey King said proudly. Then he changed the topic and said, "However, just in case, let us leave first." "Okay." Ling Han began to evacuate the monkeys from the Monkey Valley. This included the Empress, the large black dog, and the others. Then, he returned to the Monkey Valley alone and flew to the mountain peak. "Brother Monkey, I'm going to start." "Let's start." With a thought from Ling Han, the heavenly Tao fire immediately surged out from the 8th level of the chaotic Polaris Thunder Tower. It boiled and burned at the top of the mountain and quickly spread to the waist of the mountain. He quickly flew away on the chaotic Polaris Thunder Tower. The birth of Brother Monkey would definitely be earth-shattering. Hong! The heavenly Tao flame spread extremely quickly, surging all the way down the mountain. There was nothing it couldn't burn, nothing it couldn't extinguish. This was an extreme flame that could even burn a venerable to death, so it could be considered a half-saint. Ling Han is a little anxious. Why hasn't Monkey King been born yet? If the heavenly fire really reached the foot of the mountain, it would not be a joke. He decided to go to the foot of the mountain to have a look. If the Monkey King couldn't make it, he would take the heavenly fire away. Of course, it was impossible to take all of them, but it should be no problem if he only took the ones around the Monkey King. However, before Ling Han could make a move, pung, there was an earth-shattering sound, and the mountain below suddenly exploded. A figure shot out from below like a stream of light, piercing through the sky. "I old son am out." In the blink of an eye, the stream of light shot down from the sky and turned into a furry monkey. This monkey was covered in golden fur and was 1 zhang tall. Its eyes were fiery golden eyes, and it exuded a ferocious aura. It looked around disdainfully, as if it did not even place the heavens and earth in its eyes. It was Monkey King. Ling Han felt that it was a bit of an eyesore, because Monkey King's body was completely bare. Fortunately, it was covered in fur, or it would have left a psychological scar. "Come!" Monkey King shouted. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Countless golden shadows flew toward him. Pa pa pa. They stuck to his body and turned into a shining golden armor. Then, he reached into his ear and immediately took out a golden needle. Such a mighty and domineering Monkey King is actually using a golden needle as a weapon? This, what a mother! His eyeballs almost fell to the ground. "Transform!" Monkey King shouted. The golden needle continued to expand until it turned into a rod. It was completely golden and had veined patterns on it. It emitted a majestic and domineering aura. It turns out that it can be shrunk and enlarged. A material that could shrink and enlarge had to be at least at the minor realization realm. However, Monkey King is a sect master, so it is very normal for him to have such a treasure rod. This is sacred material. It is also an imitation of the ancestors Rui Jingu Bang, Monkey King explained. He stood proudly between the sky and the earth. As a sect master, of course, he could stand in the sky without using a treasure. Ling Han laughed and said, "Congratulations, Monkey King." Monkey King nodded. "Thank you for your luck. Not only did you obtain the mother metal, but you also forged a sovereign weapon and obtained the fire of the heavenly way. Otherwise, I would have to endure for a while longer. Come, let's go down and talk." The two of them landed. However, the Monkey Valley was completely destroyed, but since Monkey King had escaped, he was now the strongest person on heavenly starry sky. He could go anywhere. After meeting up with the crowd and the monkeys, Monkey King used his great magic power and brought everyone to a beautiful place. He first settled the monkeys down. Then, the monkeys took out the wine they brewed and began to celebrate. Ling Han let go of his worries. He didn't think about anything else. Every day, he drank with Monkey King. 7 days later, the banquet finally ended. "Brother, do you find it strange that the monster monkey fist is not as good as the 3 styles of the Aries god?" Monkey King took the initiative to talk about it. Ling Han didn't mention it before, because he didn't want Monkey King to think that he was blackmailing him. Although Monkey King wasn't such a narrow-minded person, he didn't want any misunderstanding between the two of them at all. However, since Monkey King took the initiative to mention it, Ling Han nodded. The monster monkey fist was created by the ancestor king. Even if it wasn't the strongest in the world, it should be tied for first place. Monkey King smiled and said, "The 3 styles of the Aries god should be left behind by the Palace of Aries. The Palace of Aries is a sacred place. How can a holy level skill compare to an imperial level skill? Moreover, the 3 styles of the Aries god is not the strongest skill in the Palace of Aries. It's just that your current level is too low, so the difference is not very obvious." Ling Han was curious and asked, "Then why?" "Because the monster monkey fist I taught you before was only suitable for you to practice in the mortal state. Now that you have entered the immortal path, it is naturally different." Monkey King smiled. It was that simple. Ling Han couldn't help but be surprised. A fist skill suitable for the mortal state could still burst out such a great power in the immortal path. And it was only slightly weaker than the 3 styles of the Aries god. How powerful would the monster monkey fist be in the immortal path realm? "Come, old son will teach you." Ling Han began to practice the monster monkey fist with Monkey King. This was a Saint Emperor skill. And it wasn't something that could be slowly figured out by Monkey King, with just a point of his finger and a thought. This was the world's top immortal skill. Not only did it need to be taught, but it also needed to be learned carefully. Those who were not talented could not learn it in 100, or even 1,000 years. Even if Ling Han's perception was so heaven-defying, he couldn't master it in a short period of time. After a whole month, he finally mastered the monster monkey fist. It was just a superficial knowledge, and he was still far from mastering the core. Ling Han planned to go back to the imperial capital to have a look. Monkey King was also quite interested, so he decided to go with Ling Han to the imperial capital to see Chen Fengyan, the junior. Then, he would leave Heavenly Sea Star and go to the Azure Dragon Empire after he became a venerable. Well, I wonder if Chen Fengyan will call me uncle this time. Chapter 3745. In just a few hours, Ling Han had returned to the imperial capital. Brother Monkey was walking around casually, while Ling Han logged into the star web. During this month, he had been practicing the demon monkey fist without eating or sleeping. He didn't rest for more than an hour every day. It was really just to let his brain rest. In such a state, he naturally didn't have time to log into the star web. As soon as he logged into the star web, he immediately received a lot of friend requests. "Dao friend, I have something important to discuss with you." "Young man, this old man is from the Nine Winds Sacred Land. Brother, please accept it." Most of the application messages were accompanied by annotations, and Ling Han only read a few of them before choosing to ignore them. He didn't log into the star web to fight for rankings or to earn money, but he heard from Brother Monkey that the star web had a function called the time room. In the time room, time would pass many times faster than normal. It was similar to the reincarnation tree, which only targeted the soul. However, the time room's fee was very high. Using 1 day as an example, it would cost 100 universe dollars by 2 times, 500 by 3 times, 10 times, and 5 million by 100 times. Ling Han might have earned some money, but he could only choose to cultivate at twice the speed for a few days. However, Brother Monkey was rich and overbearing. He let Ling Han choose the best time room, because he was rich. Back in the day, he was a sect master level almighty. Such an existence could be called an expert anywhere in the universe. His ability to earn money was naturally great. Even if Brother Monkey was captured and suppressed back then, it wouldn't be taken away by the Azure Dragon Empire. After becoming friends with Brother Monkey, a transfer message came immediately. You have earned 100 million universe dollars. Damn. Ling Han gritted his teeth. Brother Monkey was indeed rich. Alright, he was in urgent need of universe dollars now. It wouldn't be too late to pay in the future. He asked for a time room with 100 times the time flow, and let the platform automatically deduct the money until he walked out, or until he ran out of universe dollars. In the time room, Ling Han continued to practice the Demon Monkey Fist. It required a lot of time to practice. Under normal circumstances, it was normal to take 100 or 1,000 years to master the core. But Ling Han couldn't wait that long. He wanted to master this fist technique as soon as possible. Fortunately, Monkey King was here. Ling Han entered the time room and began to practice his punches. This was 100 times time acceleration. Very quickly a year passed, and then another year. His attainments in the Demon Monkey Fist grew deeper and deeper. Why did he only start to practice in the time room now? There was no other way. He didn't grasp the surface before, so he needed Monkey King to guide him step by step. Now he finally grasped the general idea and could practice by himself. 3 years, 5 years, time flew by. Ling Han was now a pure spiritual body, so he could put all his energy into practicing his fist techniques. He wanted to continue practicing, but he was forced to leave the time room. 100 million universe credits had been completely deducted. So fast. Ling Han thought about it. 100 million universe credits could only allow him to cultivate here for 20 days in real time. Even if it was 100 times faster, it would only be 2,000 days, a little more than 5 years. He didn't have enough money. The Chang clan was truly black-hearted, charging so much. However, he had finally grasped a move of the Demon Monkey Fist. There was only one move, while the real Demon Monkey Fist had 9 moves. The first move was also the simplest. 5 years, and he had only grasped one move, and it was the simplest. Ling Han sighed. This was the Emperor technique. Let's go and test out the power of the new Demon Monkey Fist. Ling Han went to the strength hall and came before the fist strength testing machine. The number 1 under the stars is here again. It's been almost 2 months, and his ranking is still around 1 billion. How strange. With his strength, he can even rank in the top 200 among the Foundation establishment stage. Why doesn't he fight in the ranking battle? Someone noticed Ling Han and immediately began to send messages, summoning friends. And as friends called friends, more and more people came running over. Ling Han didn't accept private messages, so those great sects could only come over personally to recruit him. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. One after another, big shots appeared. They were all at the True Self realm, and there was even a spirit transformation True Lord. Ling Han didn't pay attention to them. Instead, he used the Demon Monkey Fist, wrapped it with destructive energy, and then smashed towards the testing machine. Boom! His body emitted a golden light as if a demon monkey had fused with him, giving off a terrifying aura. This is an Emperor technique. Only an Emperor technique can have such power. Heavens, this is the descendant of an Emperor clan. Forget it, everyone go back. He's the descendant of an Emperor clan. How can he be recruited? Some powerful figures were observing in the dark, and after seeing Ling Han punch, they immediately exclaimed in shock. There was more than one powerful figure like this, and they all spoke up in agreement. This was the descendant of an Emperor clan, and even the sacred grounds didn't have the right to recruit him. Bang! Ling Han's fist landed on the testing machine, and instantly, a terrifying number jumped out. 349,426. Heavens, he broke his own record. Ling Han had broken the record for maximum fist strength, but it was the same as breaking the record for explosive power. Everyone was shocked. This wasn't just a little bit. but a whole 30,000 points increase in the record. What a freak. Ling Han, however, sighed. Emperor techniques were definitely stronger than saint techniques by more than 10%. But his realm was too low, so there was no fundamental difference between the power of emperor techniques and saint techniques. This was truly his limit, unless he could grasp the other 8 forms of the demon monkey fist. Ling Han had already queued up for the ranking battle, and it would take some time. Thus, he contacted Lin Luo and the others first. Close to 2 months had passed, and Lin Luo and the others had also made a name for themselves on the star web. Their ranks had risen very quickly, and at present, they were ranked in the 80 million plus. Compared to Ling Han's rank of 1 billion, they were on a completely different level. After communicating with Lin Luo and the others, Ling Han also finished queuing up and began the ranking battle. A battle quickly ended, and as soon as Ling Han exited the arena, he received a friend request, and the person who sent the request was Shi. Shi, the mysterious genius who had created the record for maximum strength, and there were still many records he had created in the strength hall. Ling Han thought about it and accepted Shi's friend request. Battle. The other party sent a single word, simple and direct. All right. Ling Han also replied with a single word. In just a short while, Shi sent a ring number. Ling Han took a look and saw that this ring was set to absolute realms. In such a ring battle, not only would the 2 parties be in the same realm, but they would also be in the same realm. It could be said to be a battle of the same realm. There were no conditions for the battle, and it was only set that only Ling Han could enter the ring. However, although the arena had a limit on the opponents, there were no restrictions on the audience. Everyone could enter and watch the battle. A single stone caused 1,000 ripples. Everyone come quickly. Shi is going to fight the number 1 under the starry sky. Chapter 3746. Shi battle with the number 1 under the starry skies. This was an extremely explosive piece of news. Both of them had created records for extreme strength, and the gap between them was only a little over a year. To think that 2 such geniuses could appear in the same era. When Ling Han broke the record set by Shi over a month ago, many people were guessing who would win if Shi and Ling Han were to fight at the same rank. Many people also posted on the forums, encouraging Shi to challenge Ling Han, or Ling Han to challenge Shi. However, Shi remained silent, and Ling Han had not logged into the star web for over a month, so the passers-by could only get excited for nothing. Now, Shi finally made a move and challenged Ling Han. Would Ling Han agree? Many people entered the arena at the first moment, waiting for Ling Han to appear. However, Ling Han did not show up even after a long time. Afraid to fight? That's right. The news should have spread long ago. But the number 1 under the starry skies still hasn't appeared. He must be afraid to fight. Damn, what number 1 under the starry skies? How dare he brag? He doesn't even dare to fight at the same rank. What number 1 under the starry skies? Everyone was disdainful. But just as they were talking excitedly, they saw that they were forced out of the arena area. What's going on? They immediately realized that Shi had cancelled the arena. He left in a huff. No. Look, the number 1 under the starry skies opened another arena and challenged Shi. Shi has already entered. Quick, let's go too. There's a fee to watch the battle. Damn, it actually costs 1,000 universe dollars. What a scam. This is daylight robbery. Everyone made a big fuss. There was actually a fee. Shi had not charged any fees just now. They all had a guess. Could it be that Ling Han did not accept the challenge, not because he was afraid to fight, but because he wanted to open up the arena and collect money? This money grubber, you only care about money. A battle between 2 extreme strength practitioners in history was such a sacred and solemn event. And you actually charged a fee? It couldn't be helped. No one wanted to miss such a battle. Even if some people could record it, most people still wanted to see it for themselves. Isn't it just 1,000 universe credits? Everyone could not hold back their urge to witness it with their own eyes. They all chose to let Star Web deduct 1,000 universe dollars and entered the arena viewing area. 1,000 universe dollars to watch a battle was ridiculously expensive, But the two combatants were the strongest in history. Who would want to miss such a battle? There was no lack of true disciples of great sects, and important descendants of aristocratic families in the universe. Gritting his teeth, he could afford 1,000 universe credits. Of course, Ling Han must be gnashing his teeth in hatred. This person was too good at making money. Ling Han didn't care at all. For such a matchless battle, if he didn't collect some money, how could he face himself? He was very poor now. You've obtained 999 universe dollars. You've obtained 999 universe dollars. Ling Han kept receiving notifications from the star web, and his wallet was rapidly bulging. Why aren't you starting? Opposite him, Shuri seemed very dissatisfied. No matter what, you're the one who broke the ancient record, but now, in order to earn some money, you're forcefully dragging me into his arena. A good duel of the strongest had actually turned into such a stink of money. It's your business to be shameless, but you can't drag me down with you. Wait a little longer, wait a little longer. Ling Han waved his hand. As he listened to the notification from the star web, his heart was filled with delight. Let the universe credits fly for a while longer. He lost his patience again. With a loud roar, he charged at Ling Han. How could such a money grubber stand side by side with him? Shuri was very tall and burly, like the incarnation of an ancient giant. Even though he was a spiritual body, his arms were wrapped with the phantoms of a dragon and a phoenix. Innate divine body, dragon phoenix, everlasting holy body. Everyone exclaimed. It was no secret that Shuri had an innate divine body, but most people didn't have the chance to see him. It was only hearsay, and now that they saw it, it was indeed true. What was a holy body? Only a first-rate innate divine body was qualified to be called a holy body. It was synonymous with power. Hong, he punched out, and two bursts of fist power shot out, respectively transforming into a dragon and a phoenix that charged towards Ling Han. Ling Han, of course, wasn't afraid. He used the three forms of the war god to meet Shiyi's attack. The three forms of the war god was his ultimate move that broke the ancient record, so its power was naturally shocking. Its limit was even higher than Shiyi's. Boom, boom, boom. The two clashed. Both of them had broken the limit of strength record. Not only were they at the peak of Heaven Foundation, but they were also the strongest since time immemorial. Attacks exploded one after another. The entire arena seemed to tremble as countless runes flashed. Too scary, really too scary. Even though I'm an extreme foundation, I'm sure I'll be crushed if I touch them. Two monsters. The power of a Heaven Foundation cultivator can be this strong. Just how did he cultivate it? Everyone was dazzled and couldn't control themselves. However, Ling Han realized that even though the star web was built by a great emperor, it still had its shortcomings. If he were to execute the three forms of the war god in the real world, his body would be filled with the force of the heavens and earth to the point where he wouldn't be able to execute the three forms of the war god. Otherwise, his body would definitely explode. However, he was in a pure spiritual form now, so he didn't have to worry about his body being overloaded. He used the three forms of the war god over and over again without any side effects. Moreover, he didn't have to worry about exhausting his secret force at all. He could use all kinds of ultimate moves to his heart's content. Therefore, Ling Han believed that the experts on the star web were indeed powerful. But if the difference in ranking was within 10, or even 100 ranks, the one with the lower ranking might win in the real world. Considering all kinds of practical problems, a martial artist's strength would change greatly. Moreover, here, everyone didn't have to worry about the problem of mystic power exhaustion. But in the real world, perhaps only Ling Han didn't have to worry about this. Thus, fighting in the star web, this advantage of his was completely covered. There was also the artifact. Ling Han had a future emperor weapon, but the star web wouldn't simulate the artifact as well. Of course, he could also choose to use weapons in the arena, but they would only have the original attributes and wouldn't have any additional effects. Ling Han nodded secretly. The star web could connect everyone in the universe, which was already extremely shocking. It couldn't be perfect. Even so, it couldn't cover up Shiyi's strength. He was truly powerful. His fist art was like a torrential storm, and the star web had perfectly manifested his innate divine body. The two divine beasts, the dragon and the phoenix, were both releasing powerful might. It was as if he wasn't fighting alone, but the celestial dragon and celestial phoenix were working together, as expected of the person who broke the extreme strength record. Chapter 3748. The Azure Dragon Empire could be said to be the victim of Sky Sea Star. Back then, this empire was worried that the Chun clan's dynasty would rise and threaten their legitimate position. Thus, they casually charged the Chun clan with the crime of treason and sent an army to encircle and annihilate the Chun clan's dynasty. Thousands of lives were slaughtered. Afterward, they used Sky Sea Star as a prison to imprison those who couldn't be killed. Previously, when Xianbei Nation rose and the prison was opened, the Azure Dragon Empire didn't have any reaction and only sent someone now. They were really late. In the past, Ling Han didn't know the reason, but now that he was connected to the star web, he could react immediately no matter what happened, even if he was on the other side of the universe. During this period of time, the Azure Dragon Empire couldn't even take care of themselves because they had been invaded by the Shadow Moon Empire. Many celestial bodies had fallen into their hands, and those were all rich and resource-rich celestial bodies. In comparison, how could they possibly care about the heavenly sea star which was their prison? How could they spare any manpower? Not long ago, the news of the Saint's inheritance was so loud that even the Azure Dragon Empire heard about it and finally sent an envoy. Oh, what did the envoy say? Ling Han asked. Xianyuan Dingwa shook his head. How would I know? Did His Majesty show up? Ling Han asked again. Not yet. The second prince, the third prince, and the chief of staff have all gone to receive them. I believe it won't be long before His Majesty is alerted. Xianyuan Dingwa speculated. Ling Han nodded. An envoy from the Azure Dragon Empire. Such an important matter would definitely alert Chen Fengyan. Although the Azure Dragon Empire had been invaded by foreign enemies, and must be in a terrible situation with a severe lack of manpower, if they could squeeze out a cult masterclass expert, it would be enough to sweep across the entire Sky Sea Star. Of course, this didn't include the Monkey King. What did the four major sects say? Ling Han knocked on the table. What can they say? Xianyuan Dingwa snorted. They are staying here for the Saint's inheritance. Now that it's proven that the so-called Saint's inheritance is a lie, they can run away at any time. The reason they haven't left immediately is because they've occupied some blessed abode lands, and they're able to pick high-level immortal medicines. That's why they're able to stay here day by day. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. You're quite insightful. Of course. Xianyuan Dingwa was a little proud. Ling Han thought for a moment and said, His Majesty will definitely step in on this matter. Let's just wait and see. Sure enough, just one day later, Chen Fengyan appeared and received this envoy from the kingdom. Monkey King also came back and said that he was going to leave Heavenly Sea Star. He wanted to break through the four extremities, but it would take a long time in the current environment of Heavenly Sea Star. He had to go to a large planet. Brother Monkey, did you see Chen Fengyan? Ling Han asked. Monkey King nodded. That brat actually hid in the restriction of the 18th underground floor. He's really as timid as a mouse. But Old Sun swept through all the obstacles along the way, so what's the use of these restrictions? Ling Han couldn't help but sweat. Chen Fengyan must have set up such a restriction to prevent Primordial True Lord and the others from sneaking up on him when he was in seclusion. But what kind of existence was Monkey King? He was the descendant of the ancient king, and a great monster with a holy weapon. Of course, he would be able to sweep through all obstacles. Sigh. Ling Han mourned for Chen Fengyan in his heart. Who asked him to have such an elder? This brat is too useless. After so many years, his cultivation is still the same. Old Sun was so angry that he beat him up. Monkey King grunted. Also, Old Sun asked him, and he didn't call you uncle. Old Sun was so angry that he beat him up again. Well, Chen Fengyan didn't die. He was quite strong. Old Sun has already told that brat to listen to you in the future, Monkey King said. Under Monkey King's violence, Chen Fengyan wouldn't dare say no. Second brother, the path of martial arts is a long one. You need to be determined to move forward. You're too sentimental. I'm afraid it'll affect your cultivation, Monkey King said. His eyes flashed with a murderous look. Old son, I'll kill all those women for you. Damn, what's wrong with your brain? Ling Han quickly waved his hand. Don't be rash, Monkey King. I know what I'm doing. I won't delay my cultivation of martial art. Look, I formed 2 foundation stones of immortality. That's unprecedented, isn't it? To cultivate 2 immortal foundations, there were 2 conditions, one of which was indispensable. Firstly, one's body needed to nurture a being of this plane. This was something that no one in the entire galaxy could achieve. Secondly, even if there really was someone like Ling Han, they would still need a monarch weapon to suppress them. Otherwise, they would still be unable to form a second celestial foundation. Therefore, it wasn't an exaggeration to say that it was unprecedented. Monkey King nodded. Fine. That was close. Ling Han heaved a sigh of relief. The next time I see you, second younger brother, if your cultivation base doesn't reach my expectations, then I've decided to sever your ties with the mortal world for you, the Monkey King said. Then he leaped into the air. Xiao! He pierced through the sky and transformed into a streak of light before vanishing. What a lot of pressure. Monkey King, you didn't tell me when you're coming back, nor did you tell me what cultivation level I should be in to satisfy you. I'm not sure. Never mind, I'll just cultivate harder. Ling Han pondered for a moment. Chen Fengyan had come out of seclusion so quickly. Could it be that he had been dragged out and beaten up by the monkey bro? So he simply ran out? Otherwise, he'd probably still be in seclusion. Just as Ling Han was thinking about this, an imperial guard suddenly came over and announced the emperor's will, asking Ling Han to immediately enter the imperial palace. On the surface, Ling Han was Chen Fengyan's subject. He had to obey the king's orders. Therefore, Ling Han followed the imperial guards and headed for the palace. The palace was bustling today. Not only were all the princes present, but the 4 marshals and elders were also present. Because of Hong Tianbu's incident, Senior Tutor Hong had already escaped from the capital and headed for the Jiuling sect. Ling Han swept a glance over. Chen Fengyan was naturally seated high up on the throne, but below him, a man in azure was also seated. He was still sipping on tea, looking very relaxed and leisurely. This was definitely an envoy from the Azure Dragon Empire. Otherwise, why would he dare to be so arrogant? In front of the emperor, everyone had to stand with respect. So this is Ling Han, one of the twin prodigies of the imperial city? The envoy from the Azure Dragon Empire looked at Ling Han and asked. All the officials revealed looks of anger. This was the palace, and even Chen Fengyan didn't say anything. What rights did this person have to speak? However, this person was an envoy from the Azure Dragon Empire. Even if he was a little arrogant, what could they say? This person was at the extreme foundation establishment realm. Who here could compete with him? Could it be that they had to let the emperor, Chen Fengyan, personally make a move to teach this fella, who didn't know any manners, a lesson? That would be a joke. The mighty Xianbei nation had no one capable enough. And yet they had to let the spirit transformation true lord personally make a move to teach a puny extreme foundation establishment realm a lesson. Wasn't it embarrassing? Chapter 3749. Ling Han walked with large strides towards the envoy from the Azure Dragon Empire. That emissary had a disdainful smile on his face. This dynasty had truly declined. Up until now, he actually hadn't seen a single person with a similar cultivation base as him. Chen Fengyan didn't count. That person should have escaped from a cage. As for how many people and experts were imprisoned in that cage, he actually had no idea. However, he wasn't afraid of Chen Fengyan. This time, he was representing the Azure Dragon Empire. So what if he was just a puny Foundation establishment realm expert? Who would dare to touch him? Touching him would be disrespecting the Azure Dragon Empire, and would attract the Almighty of the Empire to wipe out the Black North Kingdom. Moreover, apart from Chen Fengyan, who else could be a match for him? Ling Han had already neared, and he raised his hand. Hiss! Everyone couldn't help but widen their eyes. You can't be thinking of slapping him, right? To be honest, they wanted to. But firstly, they didn't have the strength. Secondly, even if they had the strength, they wouldn't dare. That was an envoy from the Azure Dragon Empire. And it would be a huge problem if they hit him. How dare you? The envoy from the Azure Dragon Empire was enraged. Putting aside the fact that Ling Han hadn't hit him yet, just standing in front of him and making such a posture was enough to make him furious. Don't you know the rules? I'm the envoy from the Imperial Court. I'm going to hit you, you bastard. Ling Han spoke and slapped down. He didn't do it suddenly, and made it clear that he was here to slap him fair and square. It was precisely because of this that the envoy from the Azure Dragon Empire was naturally infuriated. You are courting death. He sneered. What a fool. Did he really think that he could be so arrogant just because he was one of the Imperial capital's twin prodigies? This was a backward and primitive celestial body, where the martial art was just starting to flourish. What kind of prodigy could it produce? You think you're a head taller than everyone else just because you're a little taller than them? He also made a move and slapped at Ling Han's face. He wanted Ling Han dead with this attack. Pa! The slap was unstoppable. The Azure Dragon Empire's envoy was instantly sent flying. Bang! He fell heavily onto the ground, and fresh blood flowed out. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. This was beating up the high envoy. Things had gotten out of hand. Good. That emissary got up, his mouth full of blood. He pointed angrily at Ling Han, then at the others. You're finished, you're all finished. All of you must die. All of you must die. Ling Han scoffed. Haven't you learned your lesson yet? He strode over and pa. He slapped the emissary repeatedly. All the officials, including the princes, were dumbfounded. If you want to die, don't drag us down with you. Why didn't His Majesty stop it? Of course, it felt good to vent his anger. But he also had to consider the consequences. He couldn't throw his life away. It is not convenient for your Majesty to dissuade me, is it? You see, they were so arrogant. And His Majesty couldn't make a move directly, which would make people laugh at Xianbei country's lack of capable people. That Ling Han stood out, and helped Xianbei country regain face. So naturally he's meritorious. If he's meritorious, how could His Majesty reprimand him? He understood. Some of the officials immediately felt that they understood Chen Fengyan's difficulties, and thought that this was a good opportunity to suck up to him. Ling Han, that's enough, quickly stop. They all called out. Since it wasn't convenient for His Majesty to speak, they naturally had to do it on his behalf. However, Ling Han didn't even look at them, and just continued to beat up the Azure Dragon Empire's emissary. He didn't have any good impression of the Meng clan. Previously, he competed with Meng Yongqing for the Buddha race's fated opportunity. In addition to the crimes that the Azure Dragon Empire had inflicted on Sky Sea Star, Monkey King had suffered for over 2,000 years. All of these had determined that Ling Han and the Azure Dragon Empire would eventually stand on opposite sides. Today, he would beat up the emissary and collect some interest. Ling Han, are you crazy? Stop now. All the officials yelled out, and even the princes nearly rushed up. However, Chen Fengyan didn't say anything. How could the others have the guts like Ling Han to start a fight in this palace hall? That emissary finally understood Ling Han's determination. His heart was filled with fury, but a wise man knew better than to fight when the odds were against him. He obediently kept his mouth shut. Do you know where you were wrong? Ling Han asked. I wasn't wrong at all, that emissary said in his heart, but he didn't dare to be stubborn with Ling Han. He quickly said, I shouldn't have lost my sense of propriety in front of the Black North King. Ling Han patted the emissary's head. You still know propriety? That emissary muttered in his heart. This was just a primitive land, and it was nothing in front of the Azure Dragon Empire that was like the sun in the sky. If it wasn't for the Shadow Moon Empire's invasion, they wouldn't have sent an emissary to summon them to surrender. Instead, they would have sent their experts and armies to wipe out this celestial body. I know I was wrong, he said obediently. When he returned to the Azure Dragon Empire, he would definitely report back with added vinegar and ask the Imperial Court to send experts to eradicate the Black North Nation. Ling Han let out a faint smile. Are you thinking that after you return, you will definitely exaggerate today's matter by 100 times and then invite experts to eradicate us? When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but want to rush over and beat up Ling Han. Aren't you teaching them a lesson? That emissary quickly shook his head and said, How could I? Impossible. He had an expression of awe-inspiring righteousness. Ling Han let out a chuckle. There's no harm in saying it. However, you are just a puny Foundation establishment realm. So what if you were wronged? Who would take it to heart? Our Black North Nation is a loyal subject of the Azure Dragon Empire. Do you think the Azure Dragon Empire will wave the butcher's knife on a loyal subject? Fool, the Azure Dragon Empire has so many people. Why did they send you here? Don't you have any idea in your heart? That emissary's heart skipped a beat. That's right, why did they send him here? He was just a puny Foundation establishment realm. In the Star Sea, he wasn't even worth a fart. Who would put him in their eyes? However, he was beaten up by Ling Han until his mind was muddled. The reason why the Azure Dragon Empire sent him here was because the front line was really tight, and they couldn't transfer any experts. After all, the Azure Dragon Empire had a lot of internal conflicts, and many of the major forces were no longer obedient. Moreover, the Azure Dragon Empire still considered itself as a superior nation and looked down on Sky Sea Star. Naturally, they didn't think that there was a need to send experts here. You are just a group of prisoners. I didn't send troops to eradicate you, but allowed you to surrender. You should naturally be grateful to the point of crying. What else do you want? That emissary completely lost his arrogance. Now that the front line was in a tight situation, a spirit transformation true monarch like Chen Fengyan could provide assistance. In comparison, who was he? Ling Han smiled and threw that emissary back to the chair. He cupped his fist at Chen Fengyan and said, Greetings to your majesty. Chen Fengyan stood up abruptly. Damn, this is my uncle. Not long ago, he was beaten up by Monkey Uncle, who reprimanded him for disrespecting his elders and beat him up so badly. Now Ling Han actually bowed to him. This was really making him die. Where was Monkey Uncle? Was Monkey Uncle here? He couldn't help but look around, and his little heart was beating fast. All the officials were surprised. What was going on? Chapter 3750. A subject bowed, and Chen Fengyan actually stood up. This is too exaggerated, right? Chen Fengyan realized that he had lost his composure. He had no choice as he was already doubting his life after being beaten up by Brother Monkey. He sat back down and waved his hand. My beloved subject doesn't have to be so courteous. Ling Han nodded and retreated to the crowd of subjects. Swish. Every subject unconsciously took a few steps back and maintained an absolute distance from Ling Han. No one wanted to be associated with this troublemaker. Ling Han couldn't help but be speechless. Was he that afraid of people? Chen Fengyan looked at the envoy and spoke indifferently. You are here as a representative of the Azure Dragon Empire. What message do you have to convey? The envoy finally regained a little bit of his arrogance, but when he noticed that Ling Han was staring at him, the arrogance immediately vanished. Others had scruples, but this fellow didn't. Others didn't dare to touch him, but this fellow did. The envoy quickly spoke honestly. His Majesty requests for Xianbei King to present a letter of surrender, and to send an envoy to represent the Xianbei Kingdom in this empire. Presenting a letter of surrender was very appropriate. The Azure Dragon Empire wouldn't allow an uncontrollable force to appear in their territory, but they still wanted the Xianbei Kingdom the ruler of a country, and a grand spirit transformation perfected
All
lord.
the princes had
If he
unpleasant
dared to randomly
expressions.
recognize someone
This
as his
envoy was
elder,
definitely going
then
to
he
be
would
chosen
lose all
from
his
among
face.
them.
Therefore,
the
Ling
top
Han
10
really was
princes were the most
Chen Fengyan's elder.
nervous.
No
They had the
wonder
best
Ling Han was
talents
so
and
arrogant
the highest
before.
cultivation
And Chen
realm.
Fengyan didn't
They
stop
would definitely be
him. Wouldn't
chosen
that be
first.
treason?
The
This
more
nephew
important
of
this
mine has
hostage
over
was to
100
Chen
sons.
Fengyan.
He
The
wouldn't
more
care
obedient
about any
Chen
one of them
Fengyan
being
would
sent
be.
as a hostage.
It was a simple logic.
Ling Han said,
But who would want to be a
however,
hostage?
this uncle of mine
To put
is
it
different.
nicely,
There
an
is only
envoy
one
was
of
in
him,
fact a hostage.
and the significance
And what
is
kind of
completely
treatment could a
different.
hostage receive?
They
Why
were
are
all
you even
princes,
promoting
and a
yourself?
single call for
Everyone
hundreds
was
of
speechless.
responses.
They
How
were going to be
uninspiring
hostages,
was that?
not to
But if
enjoy
they were
themselves.
to go to the Azure
Why
Dragon
were you
Empire,
so enthusiastic?
they would be like a
The
bug
emissary
that couldn't
couldn't
be
help but
answered by
nod.
the heavens and
That's
earth.
right.
Ling
All the
Han had
princes
over
looked at
100
Chen
sons.
Fengyan,
No matter
hoping
which
that
one
their
he
father's
chose as a
love
hostage,
was like a mountain.
would he be able
and
to
that they
threaten
wouldn't
Chen
be
Fengyan?
chosen?
Furthermore,
A
once
voice
Ling Han
echoed,
went to the
which
Azure
was
Dragon
very abrupt
Empire,
in the silence.
it wouldn't be his
Swish.
territory anymore.
Everyone's eyes
It
looked
would be
towards
possible
Ling Han.
for him to take
It was
revenge.
Ling Han who had
When
spoken just
thinking
now.
about this,
All
his
the
heart
officials
couldn't
shook
help
their
but
heads.
palpitate.
You are too
All
good
right,
at
it shall be
flattering.
you. But
He
the
nodded.
problem is,
Everyone
no
was
matter
speechless.
how much His Majesty
Such a
favors
huge matter
you,
was decided
what
by Ling Han's
qualifications do you have to be a
self-promotion,
hostage?
and the emissaries not.
Being a hostage
This was
wasn't
too
something that
childish,
could
right?
be casually
Ling
done.
Han.
One
Chen
had to have
Fengyan
sufficient
spoke.
status.
This was monkey
without
uncle's
waiting for
sworn
Chen
brother.
Fengyan to speak.
And if he was to
the
send
emissary
Ling Han
into the
interrupted,
Azure Dragon Empire,
that emissary better
monkey
be the son
uncle
of
would
North
definitely
Xianwang.
beat him to death.
Otherwise,
Ling
it
Han
might
laughed.
be useless even
I
if
have
you
made
go.
up my mind.
He was afraid
Chen
of being
Fengyan had
beaten
no
by
choice
Ling Han,
but to shut his
so
mouth.
he worded his
He
words
was putting on the
carefully,
stance of a
afraid
senior,
that Ling Han
and
would
if he
beat him
dared
up
to
again.
disobey, Ling
He
Han
would also
smiled.
be beaten up
Don't
by
worry,
monkey
I have
uncle.
enough.
Sai,
He
it
paused
was really
for a
hard
moment
to be a
and said to
nephew
Chen
these
Fengyan,
days.
Isn't
Soon
that
enough,
right, nephew?
Chen Fengyan passed down the
All eyes
imperial
turned
decree.
to Chen Fengyan again.
3 days later,
Eldest
Ling
Han
Han
would
would
bring
bring
the
the
surrender
surrender
letter
felt gloomy in his
and
heart.
follow the Azure
What was to
Dragon
come had
Empire's
finally
emissary
come.
to the Moonlight
This layer
Star.
of relationship
Was Ling
could not
Han
be covered
really
up.
so righteous
However,
that he was
he was
sacrificing
also
for the
grateful
Chen
that Ling
clan?
Han was
Of
willing
course
to
not.
stand up for the
This
Chen
was the
family.
decision
He
nodded.
made after careful
Ling Qing is
consideration.
indeed our elder.
First of all,
A stone raises
Sky
a thousand
Star.
ripples.
Ling
What?
Han's
Ling
alchemy
Han is
Dao
actually
strength couldn't be
Chen Fengyan's
used at
elder?
all.
Heavens,
Which was
how is this
equivalent to being
possible?
buried.
The second
He had to go
prince
to a planet
and the
with
others
abundant
suddenly
resources.
remembered that when Ling Han was
Second,
teaching
he
them
was
a
now
lesson,
connected to the
he
star
did
web
say that he was
and
their
didn't lack
uncle
money
or
at
something
all.
like that.
He could buy whatever he
originally
wanted,
thought that
but
Ling
the
Han
Sky
was
Star
deliberately taking
didn't
advantage of
include
them.
shipping,
But they didn't
Third,
expect it to
he
be
wanted
true.
to spy on the
Azure
emissary was
Dragon
also
Empire's
astonished.
actual situation and make preparations for the future. Therefore, he would rather take the risk to be a hostage. If he was really annoyed, he could just release the Heaven Dao fire and turn the Azure Dragon Empire upside down. Then, he would ask Monkey Brother to come and pick him up and leave the Gold Origin sacred ground far away. After returning to the Department of Foreign Affairs, Ling Han made arrangements. This time, he was a hostage, so he definitely couldn't bring the Empress and the others. However, the Empress and the others had also advanced into the foundation building realm, and it would be too slow to advance on the Sky Star. Therefore, the Empress and the others had to set off later and let Tang Yin or send them on a flying shuttle. Anyway, there was the Origin nurturing gourd that could carry a lot of people. Of course, the Empress and the others didn't need to ask. They were all his wives. Lin Luo, Zhou Heng, Original Born Heavenly Venerable, and the others also expressed their willingness to go to the Moonlight Star. Ling Han revealed a smile. When Monkey Brother advanced into the 4 extreme tiers and became a venerable, they should also have grown up and could become Monkey Brother's arms to overthrow the Azure Dragon Empire. This trip to the Azure Dragon Empire would be to plant countless seeds of hope. The Empress was fine, but Hunyo wasn't a reasonable person. She acted coquettishly and wanted to go with Ling Han. In the end, she was suppressed by the Empress and could only scream. 3 days later, Ling Han left the Department of Foreign Affairs and boarded a spaceship with the Azure Dragon Empire's envoy, setting off for the Moonlight Star. And with him, there was also the big black dog and perverted pig. Chapter 3752. It wasn't that someone was intentionally targeting Ling Han, but this was the rule of the first natal residence. Hostages couldn't leave without permission. TSK, he really thinks he's a prisoner. Ling Han didn't argue, although the guard here was only at the foundation building level, and he could deal with him with one finger. If he really made a move, it would attract the suppression of the Azure Dragon Empire. For the current Ling Han, it was a colossus that he couldn't fight against. Thus he turned around and went back but asked, I can't go out. Is it okay for my dog to go out for a walk? Walk the dog. No, the dog walked by itself. The guard thought for a moment and said, no problem. As long as there was no problem. After Ling Han went back, he called the large black dog over. What? Can't you see I'm busy? The large black dog was lying on the ground. Ever since he was equipped with the connection device, he seemed to have gotten an extremely interesting toy, and was immersed in that world, having a lot of fun. Ling Han laughed. Okay, then from now on, I won't give you universe dollars anymore. The large black dog immediately climbed up and said with a flattering smile, Little Han, Grandpa Dog is just joking with you. Don't take it seriously. Quickly tell me what's going on. Grandpa Dog is going to bring a girl to explore the extremely cold land. We agreed that after we pass, the girl will show Grandpa Dog her underwear. Ling Han almost gave him a slap. What are you thinking all day long? In the Star Web, apart from sparring and shopping, there were also some virtual mystery realms that people could enter to train and increase their experience. Dying time and time again in the virtual mystery realms was actually so that they wouldn't die or even get hurt in the real mystery realms. But for the large black dog, it actually became a tool for him to pick up girls. You damn dog, can't you be a little more promising? Ling Han sighed. Humph. Lascivious Pig also laughed at him. You're not much better. Ling Han glared at him. Lascivious Pig gave him a look of disdain. If it wasn't for this guy, he would definitely be in the arms of different beauties and enjoying the blessings of women. Bastard. Little Han, why did you call Grandpa Dog? The large black dog asked. Ling Han looked at the dog, and he was slightly hesitant now. Was it a good idea to leave this matter to the large black dog? Would this guy use public funds to pick up girls? However, if they did not send the large black dog, could it be that they would send the perverted pig? Ling Han glanced at the lecherous pig and shook his head. Sigh, why were there so many unreliable pigs and dogs around him? Perverted Pig was instantly enraged. What kind of expression is that? It's fine if you look down on that perverted dog, but why did you have to insult Uncle Pig, you bastard? He had no choice but to let the large black dog do it. Help me buy some herbs, Ling Han said with a straight face. The large black dog faltered and tilted his head to look at Ling Han. Little Han, you're actually delaying Grandpa Dog's flirting with girls for such a trivial matter? Here, I'll transfer 200,000 universe coins to you. Buy me 10 portions of the herbs on this list. I've marked a price for each of them. If you can buy them back at a lower price, it'll be your errand fee. Ling Han tempted him. I'll go. The large black dog immediately stood up and put a hand on Ling Han's shoulder. Little Han, if there's such a thing in the future, just send Grandpa Dog for it. We're friends. Scram. After Ling Han transferred the money, the large black dog ran off like a wisp of smoke. After a long time, the large black dog finally came back. He left a pile of herbs on the ground, and then disappeared like a wisp of smoke. He had probably embezzled a lot of money, and was afraid that Ling Han would go back on his word. Unfortunately, he did not know how much money Ling Han had earned from his battle with Shuri. Otherwise he would definitely strangle Ling Han's neck and demand his dividends. Ling Han smiled, and after checking the herbs he nodded. The large black dog might not be reliable, but the herbs he bought this time were all good. There were no cases of insufficient age or loss of medicinal properties after being stored for too long. On this point Old Black still had a sense of propriety. He knew the importance of Ling Han's elixir concoction. Thus he should have started by haggling and earned some money. Otherwise, he wouldn't have spent almost a day just to buy some herbs. He reckoned that he had exhausted his mouth and caused the shop assistants to be dumbfounded. On this point, Ling Han was very confident in the large black dog. Ling Han then started to set up the array. He frowned slightly. The power of heaven and earth here had been changed, and it was used to set up the Azure Dragon Empire's imperial capital's defensive array. It was a very high-grade array, and it made it very troublesome for Ling Han to draw upon the power of heaven and earth to set up an elixir concoction array. To put it simply, He couldn't compete with the imperial capital's great array. Without a choice, Ling Han could only use the Dao stones to replenish it. He burned the Dao stone's energy as the price to replenish the lack of power of heaven and earth. This consumed a lot of Dao stones, but there was no other way. Ling Han began to concoct the elixir. He threw the herbs into the furnace and used his mind power to draw upon the power of heaven and earth to fuse and sublimate the essences of the herbs. With a crisp sound, the furnace was broken. Ling Han couldn't help but frown. There was nothing wrong with his concoction technique, but concocting elixirs above the immortal path would draw upon an astonishing amount of power of heaven and earth. This ordinary furnace wouldn't be able to withstand such energy pressure, and was easily broken. Was he going to use the chaotic polarity thunder pagoda again? This was the Azure Dragon Empire's imperial capital. Ling Han didn't want to expose the treasures on him. Although the Varch weapon could conceal itself, it wasn't enough for greedy people. He had to get a better furnace. He couldn't possibly use the chaotic polarity thunder pagoda to concoct elixirs in the future, right? He took out the chaotic polarity thunder pagoda and started to concoct again. This time, he would use the future Varch weapon to make up the numbers. The concoction of the foundation transformation elixir was very complicated. Furthermore, it required a wisp of the immortal foundation power of the alchemist, which would directly affect the quality of the elixir. Ling Han had to be very careful, even though he had practiced it many times in his mind. However, practice was practice, and this was just an armchair strategist. He had to use it in reality. Failure, failure, failure. This was much harder than Ling Han had imagined. He had actually failed 7 times in a row. For an alchemy emperor, this was an inconceivable matter. He adjusted his state and wasn't in a hurry to start the 8th furnace. Instead, he recalled in his mind and summarized his own shortcomings. After half an hour, Ling Han started again. This time he was successful. After 3 hours he revealed a smile. The success of the elixir was imminent. He fiercely flicked his finger. Xiao xiao xiao. He struck out with 7 streams of force. This was his immortal foundation power, and was also the primer for the foundation transformation elixir. It was extremely important. The 7 streams of force entered the elixir, causing the 7 elixirs to dance in the air like spirits. Ling Han concentrated. He was fusing the immortal foundation power with the elixir power. 1 second, 2 seconds, 10 seconds. In a very short period of time, Ling Han reached out his hand and waved. Xiao. All 7 elixirs were collected into his palm. Clap, clap, clap. Applause rang out. Chapter 3753. Ling Han lifted his head and saw a purple-clothed lady standing on the wall. This lady looked to be in her early 20s and was extremely beautiful. Her figure was graceful, and as she stood on the high ground, her dress was blown by the wind and stuck tightly to her body, outlining her alluring curves. Young lady you are? Ling Han asked. My name is Lu Xuanyu. The lady said. Are you the newcomer, Ling Han? I am. Ling Han nodded, and continued to look at her with a questioning expression. Why are you standing on the wall of my house? Lu Xuanyu giggled and jumped down from the wall. I am so sorry. I smelled the elixir's fragrance and couldn't help but want to take a look. I didn't expect you to be an alchemy master. Ling Han, however, was slightly apprehensive. He had not discovered when the other party had leaped onto the wall. Though part of the reason for this was because he was completely focused on concocting alchemical pills. Even so, no matter which foundation building tier cultivator it was, it would not be able to hide from his divine sense. Ling Han still had that much confidence. Therefore, there was only one possibility. This Lu Xuanyu wasn't at the foundation establishment realm, and was at least at the casting cauldron realm. You flatter me. Ling Han let out a faint smile. Lu Xuanyu was very enthusiastic. You are too humble. There are many hostages here, and there is no lack of astounding talents in martial art. But when it comes to alchemy masters, as far as I know, you are the only one. All right then. Ling Han nodded honestly. His talent in the alchemy Dao was indeed astounding. Lu Xuanyu let out a sweet smile. You just arrived and probably don't know much about this place. Let me tell you about it. All right. Lu Xuanyu introduced to Ling Han. There were a total of 23 hostages here, which represented the 23 factions that were affiliated with the Azure Dragon Empire. Some factions had existed for tens of thousands of years, but there were also some that had just been established. The Azure Dragon Empire allowed their subordinates to compete in private. For example, if another faction emerged from the Heaven Sea Star and eliminated the Chen clan and replaced them, the Azure Dragon Empire wouldn't send troops to take revenge for the Chen clan. As long as that faction was obedient and paid enough tribute, everything would be fine. Of course, this force must never affect the rule of the Azure Dragon Empire. Otherwise, it would inevitably be destroyed, just like the Chen clan dynasty back then. In fact, they didn't have any rebellious behavior. It was because the Meng clan felt that if this carried on, the Chen clan might go out of control and become so powerful that it could threaten the existence of the Meng clan. Because they were all hostages, the people of the first natal residence were united, and Lu Xuanyu was the leader of the group. Ling Han, we're all living under someone else's roof, so we have to help each other, right? Lu Xuanyu asked in the end. Ling Han naturally agreed and said, yes. Lu Xuanyu gave Ling Han a meaningful look. If you encounter any difficulties in the future, remember to look for me. If the circumstances allow it, I will definitely help you resolve it. I'll remember it. Lu Xuanyu floated away while Ling Han rubbed his chin and pondered. They actually formed a group in this small hostage residence. According to Lu Xuanyu, there were a total of 3 cast tripod realm martial artists here. One of them was her, and the other 2 were Han Bing and Zhao Xiao. The rest were only at the foundation establishment realm. It wasn't that the people here were slow-witted, but they wouldn't be a hostage for more than 100 years. After that, they would be replaced. Furthermore, it was extremely difficult to break through to the life core realm, and those who could cultivate to this realm were basically old freaks, who were a few hundred years old. Furthermore, for those who could break through to the life core realm before the age of 100 years, there would probably not be more than 10 individuals in a celestial body. In theory, as long as Ling Han stayed here obediently for 100 years, he would naturally be able to be released upon completion of his sentence. But the problem was that he had to stay in this first natal residence without freedom for 100 years. What a joke! How could he leave? Ling Han naturally didn't have any intention of becoming a hostage. He came here because the Chang clan had a base on the Moonlight planet. Furthermore, he couldn't leave, and could only rely on the large black dog as a tentacle. It was too inconvenient. Ling Han immediately thought of his alchemy arts. For a genius alchemist like him, no matter where he went, he would be able to become an esteemed guest. Thus, as long as he could make a name for himself, it wouldn't be a problem for him to leave this place. Without a doubt, the Foundation Transformation Pill was the best proof. Ling Han decided to refine more Foundation Transformation Pills. Not only did this represent wealth, it was also a symbol of identity and status. Thus, he had to be patient first. He didn't believe that the people from the hostage residence would never have the chance to leave. Even prisoners had time to relax. And they were the envoys of the various forces in name, not criminals. Ling Han continued to refine pills. He had just finished refining one furnace, and his technique hadn't reached a perfect stage yet. There was still a lot of room for improvement. He was rather low-key, never leaving his residence, and refined pills every day. The hostage residence was an unofficial term. In reality, the first NATO residence was occupied by the envoys of the various forces. Thus, the Azure Dragon Empire naturally had to express their stance. Every month, they would provide a large amount of cultivation resources to the first NATO residence, but the right to distribute them was in the hands of Lu Xuanyu. As expected, her role as a captain wasn't to help others or to unite everyone. Instead, she had a certain amount of authority. If I don't like you, so what if I give you less? If you can't even leave, who are you going to complain to? Furthermore, the Azure Dragon Empire was sending the cultivation resources on a monthly basis, but Lu Xuanyu was distributing them every day. Thus, as long as she was offended, her revenge would come very quickly. After one day, Ling Han stopped refining elixirs and opened up the connection device. Recently, Brother Monkey had been uncontactable. It shouldn't be because he turned off the connection device, but because he was adventuring in a certain mystic realm. Normally, the star web wouldn't be able to connect to a mystic realm. As usual, Ling Han sent a message to Brother Monkey and switched to the trade interface. He put up the information of the Foundation transformation pills for sale and queued up to participate in the ranking tournament. In just a split second, someone sent a message to him. Damn, aren't you the guy who broke the first record? Why are you selling elixirs again? Faint. Are you crazy for money? Are you thinking of selling fake elixirs to earn money? Messages after messages were sent over. Some of them were curious that Ling Han was doing a hawker business, while others were doubting if the elixirs Ling Han was selling were real or fake. It couldn't be helped. The previous incident of the tickets had already labeled Ling Han as a money grubber. Now that he was selling elixirs, there would naturally be doubts. Ling Han couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Was his credibility that low? He added another sentence on the sale information. You can use the Star Web's delivery service. If you find any fake goods, you can return them immediately. This time, there were much fewer people who doubted him. However, there were still a few people who questioned him and didn't believe him at all. Ling Han couldn't be bothered to reply. He was selling Foundation transformation pills. Did he need to beg others to buy it? After he displayed his cold attitude, many people actually believed him. Furthermore, with the Star Web as a guarantor, if he really encountered fake goods, he would still be able to get his money back. Chapter 3754. Ling Han only accepted 10 orders, and then he removed the order for selling Foundation transformation pills. The rarer something was, the more valuable it was. If there were too many of them, they wouldn't be valuable anymore. He was the Alchemy Emperor. So the pills he took out naturally had to be sold at a sky-high price. How could he sell them cheaply? That would be too embarrassing. Ling Han asked the large black dog to make another trip to the Chong clan's office to deliver the goods. This postage was naturally borne by the buyer, but it was now frozen by the star web. If it was proven that Ling Han was selling fake goods, then not only would he not be able to sell the goods, he would also lose a huge sum of teleportation fees. After waiting for a while, he started the ranking battles. He spent more than 4 hours fighting the 3 battles. The main reason was that he had waited for too long. No wonder some geniuses didn't fight in the ranking battles. For those who didn't have enough patience, this would make them go crazy. A night passed, and Ling Han cultivated in the early morning as usual. After stepping into the celestial path, he could actually cultivate at any time. But the efficiency was the highest in the early morning, which was even 100 times more than other times. After cultivating, Ling Han began to eat breakfast. He planned to continue concocting alchemical pills later. Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. The servant went to open the door, but when he returned, he didn't report who had come, but directly brought the person in. Ling Han was instantly displeased. He hadn't decided whether to meet or not. So how could he directly bring the person in? He looked at the person who had come. This was a young man with an imposing manner. He had a dignified appearance, and he also had a kind of arrogance. They were just hostages. Was there a need to be so overbearing? Then he looked at the servant, and there was an obvious fear on his face. That young man was in the Foundation establishment realm. If he wanted to force his way in, that servant wouldn't be able to stop him. You know how to refine pills? That young man asked directly. My name is Tan Jingjia. You can call me Brother Tan. If you have any problems in the future, feel free to look for me. In this residence, I still have some face. I heard from Sister Lu that you've even refined Foundation transformation pills. Give me a few, and give me your Star Web account. I'll transfer the money to you later. If this person was a little more polite, then Ling Han might have considered it. However, this person displayed such a condescending attitude right from the start. Ling Han was not happy about it. Who are you? What Tan Jingjia do I know you? Ling Han smiled. Can I look for you for anything? Of course. Tan Jingjia nodded proudly. Ling Han nodded. Okay. Then I'll have to trouble Brother Tan to do me a favor, and let me leave this place immediately. Tan Jingjia's expression immediately stiffened. You want to leave this place? Bah, I also want to, but the point is this realistic? They were all hostages. Even if they had some ability, it was limited to a small place like the Jia Yuanfu. Are you toying with me on purpose? His face immediately darkened. Ling Han smiled. Didn't you say that you can help with anything? Nonsense, even so, you can't demand such an exorbitant price. Tan Jingjia suppressed his anger. Alright, I'll talk business with you now. 10,000 Dao stones for 1 Foundation transformation Dan. Give me 10 of them. 10,000. Ling Han almost laughed out loud. The market price of a Foundation transformation Dan was 50,000, and there was no market for it. For example, he had put up 100,000 on the Star Web trading platform, but in the end, no one dared to bargain and immediately bought it. You want to take it away with 10,000 Dao stones? What a huge joke. I'll pay 20,000 Dao stones for 1. I'll take as many as you have. Ling Han replied. Ling Han. Tan Jingjia raised his voice by a level. Don't think that being able to refine pills is amazing. This is the Jia Yuanfu. You're just a prisoner. You speak as if you're not. Ling Han shook his head. You. Tan Jingjia pointed at Ling Han. I'll give you one more chance. You should know that if you offend me, you won't be able to move an inch in this place. Oh, you have such great ability. Ling Han laughed. Tan Jingjia said proudly. Sister Lu's Pioneer Star and my Dong Yuan Star have been friends for generations, and they're even in-laws. So if I were to say a few words to Sister Lu, I guarantee that you won't have a good time. Ling Han sighed. Say you're still a man. Why don't you have any prospects, and still need a woman to stand up for you? Tan Jingjia's face instantly turned red. He was obviously very angry. These words were too hurtful. Do you think I can't take care of you? He said coldly. Ling Han laughed. shook his head and said, "It's not that I'm looking down on you, but I can beat 10 of you with one hand." "Arrogant, you're really arrogant," Tan Jingjie said coldly. "Come out, let's go to the battlefield to practice." The battlefield was a place specially used for practicing martial arts and sparring. This was because the destructive power of the Foundation establishment was too great. If they were to really spar with their hands and feet, this Jia Yuanfu would collapse in a few blows. "There's no need to go through so much trouble. It's just a matter of stretching out my hand." Ling Han smiled and extended his hand towards Tan Jingjie. "Impudent." Tan Jingjie was furious. "This brat is really arrogant, and he actually dares to take the initiative to attack me. Moreover, who do you think I am? You can take me down in 2 or 3 blows, so I don't even need to go to the battlefield." But just as his hand reached out, his expression changed. Ling Han's hand felt like heaven and earth were suppressing him, giving him a feeling that he was unmatched. "This is too scary. We're both at the Foundation establishment realm. But why is the gap so big?" He wanted to risk his life and burst out with power to at least shatter this courtyard, which would attract the attention of others, and he would be rescued. But when his power surged out, he was surprised to find that his power was actually limited to an extremely small area. How is this possible? He might only be at the Heaven Foundation establishment realm, but even at the Extreme Foundation establishment realm, it was impossible to have such a strong suppression on him. Is he at the Cast Tripod realm? No, absolutely impossible. He hurriedly shook his head in his heart. The aura that Ling Han emitted was definitely at the Foundation establishment realm, and it was impossible for him to be a Cast Tripod realm expert. But they were both at the Foundation establishment realm, so how could the gap be so big? What was his ranking in the star web? Top 10,000, or even top 1,000? He hadn't even finished this thought when he was already taken down by Ling Han. Ling Han carried him and walked straight to the main door. Then he raised his hand and tossed. Pa! Tan Jingjie was thrown onto the ground. He didn't even take a second look, closed the door, and walked back. "In the future, no one is allowed to enter without my permission," he said calmly to the 3 servants. This was the first time, so he didn't make a fuss about it. "Yes, young Master Han." The 3 servants all trembled. That was Tan Jingjie, and he was actually swept out like a dog. This master was really too awesome. But young Master Han, that Tan Zheng. One of the servants still wanted to remind Ling Han of Tan Jingjie's background, but Ling Han swept a cold glance over him, and he instantly shut his mouth obediently, not daring to say another word. Chapter 3756. An array formation. Ling Han reacted immediately. This colorful ball was protected by an array formation. If he tried to take it by force, the only result would be the colorful ball exploding. That would be equivalent to doing it for nothing. He swept a glance over and saw that there were a few patterns glowing under the colorful ball. Instantly, a corresponding array pattern appeared in his mind. This was a very simple array formation. Even if one was not an array master, they could still easily crack it, because there were too many loopholes left. In reality, this array formation was meant to be cracked by others. Its purpose was only to delay for a moment, so that others could catch up and launch their attacks. However, to Ling Han, this array formation was too simple. It should be known that he had already crossed the threshold of an array master, and could even shift into an array. How long would it take for him to crack this almost child's array formation? He merely stretched out his hand and swiped it, and the light of the array formation dimmed. The weak power of heaven and earth was changed by him. Ling Han grabbed at the air again. Xiao, the colorful ball automatically flew up and landed in his hand. This series of actions took a long time to describe, but it actually happened in an instant. Only a few tenths of a second had passed. If Ling Han was willing, he could completely rush back, and he could guarantee that no one could stop him. But thinking about it, since Tan Jingjie was unwilling to accept a lesson, then he would teach him a lesson today. Lu Xuanyu's 3 cast cauldrons all let out a cry of surprise. Cracking the array formation on the colorful ball was really too simple, and anyone could do it. However, he only needed to swipe his hand to undo the array formation. This was really too easy, Unless Ling Han was an array master. How could that be? Wasn't this guy a genius alchemist? Who was so freakish that he could excel in both array formations and alchemy? At this moment, Tan Jingjie and the others had already charged over. Ling Han held the colorful ball in his left hand and held it behind his back. He faced 19 aggressive opponents alone. Tan Jingjie revealed a ruthless expression. In his plan, he had asked the other 9 companions to join forces with him to gang up on Ling Han. However, if Ling Han didn't get a colored ball, it would be too obvious if the 10 of them went to fight a person without a colored ball. Now that Ling Han had obtained the colored ball, it was reasonable for them to attack him together. The difference was that the previous attacks were for the sake of snatching the colored ball. Now, of course, they were targeting Ling Han himself. Kill! Tan Jingjie roared, taking the initiative to attack. Ling Han shook his head. You still haven't learned your lesson. How stupid. Xiao xiao xiao. The others also unleashed their attacks, all of them greeting Ling Han. Ling Han was calm and unafraid. He had quite a few ways to instantly kill these 19 people. But after thinking for a moment, he opened up a screen of starlight and then stared at Tan Jingjie as he began his counterattack. He suppressed his strength, showing that it was just enough to crush Tan Jingjie. Pung pung pung. More than 10 attacks landed on the starlight curtain, but they couldn't break it at all. Meanwhile, Tan Jingjie couldn't handle Ling Han's counterattack. He kept on retreating, appearing to be in an extremely sorry state. Tan Jingjie was extremely depressed. Why did he have to target him? He barely managed to block, but he couldn't withstand Ling Han's attacks. Punches and palms continuously landed on his body, causing him endless pain. Interesting, Zhao Xiao said calmly. His eyes had a trace of curiosity. Was this light curtain that Ling Han released a kind of cultivation technique, or a secret treasure? If it was a secret treasure, what grade would it be? If it was a 1-star artifact, he naturally wouldn't care, as it was no longer suitable for him. However, if it was a 2-star or even higher grade artifact, then he would naturally be tempted. If it was a cultivation technique, then he would use any means necessary to obtain it. One's own strength surpassed external objects. For example, in the Star Web ranking battle, no treasures could be relied on. Even if one had an imperial armament, it would be useless. Hehe. Han Bing also revealed a smile. His thoughts were similar to Zhao Zhao's. Even Lu Xuanyu was very surprised. She only knew that Ling Han was a genius in alchemy and could refine the foundation transformation pill. He was also not weak in the aspect of martial art and could even suppress Tan Jingjie. However, when she saw Ling Han's starlight curtain, she was still very shocked. This guy seemed to have grasped an extremely powerful cultivation technique. She sneered in her heart. Since he had entered the first natal palace, it was equivalent to falling into the palm of her hand. There was no way he could escape. Pung pung pung. The attacks turned into incomparably resplendent light, continuously landing on the starlight curtain. However, although the curtain was on the verge of collapse, it did not break. One could not help but sigh at the tenacity of its life force. This rendered the people surrounding Ling Han speechless. They felt as if Ling Han was wearing a tortoise shell. No matter how many people they had, or how powerful their attacks were, they couldn't do anything to him at all. Tan Jingjie was even more miserable. The others only felt depressed that they could not break through Ling Han's defense. But he was constantly being beaten by Ling Han. Every punch and palm hit his flesh, and the pain was excruciating. Finally, he could not take it anymore and turned to run. I'm not going to fight anymore, alright? I want to run. Ling Han chuckled, and with a big stride, he charged forward and gave Tan Jingjie a series of violent punches. Although he was only using his right hand, the speed at which he punched out was faster than most people's fists. Every punch landed heavily on Tan Jingjie's body. Only pieces of cloth could be seen flying in the air, and Tan Jingjie's clothes had been torn apart by Ling Han. This is called armor break, Ling Han said with a smile. Armor break. When everyone heard this, they all had strange expressions. Armor break shouldn't be breaking through the opponent's defense. For example, armor, or other protective items. If you shattered the opponent's clothes, how could this be called armor break? Ah! Tan Jingjie let out a shameful scream. He had actually been beaten naked by Ling Han in front of everyone. What kind of humiliation was this? Tisk tsk tsk. Someone glanced at his crotch and couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression. What a giant! Ling Han also felt that it was a bit unsightly, and so he raised his leg. Pung! He kicked Tan Jingjia's buttocks, kicking him out of the battlefield. He turned around and looked at everyone. Who was the one who beat me the most fiercely just now? Everyone was aghast. This guy had withstood their firepower and forcibly tore Tan Jingjia's clothes, causing him to leave the battlefield in disgrace. Now he was targeting them. Who could withstand this? This was a monster. Being swept by Ling Han's gaze, everyone revealed a look of fear. If they were targeted by Ling Han, they would be very, very miserable. You bastard, you already got the colored ball, why aren't you leaving? You. Ling Han pointed at one person. No, not me. That person was so scared that his face turned green. He hurriedly turned around and ran. I won't fight anymore, okay? Dream on. Ling Han caught up with him and gave him a good beating. After he had his fill, he looked at the others. Instantly, those people were so scared that their faces instantly turned pale. You are invulnerable, and your skin is as thick as what? How can I beat you? Without saying anything else, they all turned around and ran. Ling Han caught up with one person and beat him up, but the others all ran away. Hee, you guys are too naive. With a paw, Ling Han crushed the colored ball. According to the rules, they had to compete again. Damn it. Everyone was on the verge of collapse. Chapter 3757. At this moment, everyone's hearts were on the verge of collapsing. Aren't you a little too ruthless? You didn't beat up enough people, so you deliberately broke the colored ball and started again? Fuck, you're really not just a normal kind of black. But rules were rules. The colored ball had broken, so this round was equivalent to coming here for nothing. They had to start again. Everyone looked like they had eaten a dead child, their expressions extremely ugly. Even Lu Xuanyu and the others had strange expressions. The winner had broken the colored ball himself. Such a strange thing had only happened today. Fine, let's start again. The lottery competition restarted, but no one walked into the battlefield. Who wanted to be beaten up? Stupid. Ling Han crossed his hands and walked forward slowly. His appearance was very hateful, as if he was mocking everyone. But no matter how much they hated him, which one of them could beat Ling Han? Sigh, being invincible is really lonely. Ling Han shook his head and walked to the center of the battlefield. He picked up the colored ball and walked back slowly. Everyone was furious, especially Tan Jingjia. This time he had been beaten up. His hatred for the past and hatred for the new. One step, two steps. Although Ling Han walked slowly, the battlefield was only so big. After a few minutes he still walked out. Winner Ling Han. This result was the same as the previous time. But if it happened again, everyone would gnash their teeth in hatred and want to skin Ling Han alive. Congratulations, Ling Han, for winning this lottery competition, Lu Xuanyu said with a smile, looking at Ling Han with a meaningful gaze. Ling Han smiled at the people around him. Thank you, everyone, for your humble concession. Humble my ass. If I could beat you, I would definitely skin you alive. Everyone was already in a bad mood. Seeing that Ling Han was still mocking them, they were infuriated. How could there be such a venomous person in the world? Ling Han turned around and said to Lu Xuanyu, Captain, when can I go out? Tomorrow. Ling Han nodded and strode off. Hee, this guy seems to be a bit of a prick. Zhao Xiao walked over and looked at Ling Han's back. Very unruly. Han Bing also said. Lu Xuanyu revealed a confident smile. I will make him do things obediently. When he said that, Zhao Xiao and Han Bing showed jealousy at the same time, and their expressions were extremely weird. Zhao Xiao could not help but say, Xuanyu, that is just a small foundation establishment realm cultivator. Teach him a lesson, and he will be obedient. That's right. To put it more realistically, this is a prison. As long as you don't beat someone to death, who would care about a hostage from another country? Han Bing nodded. Let me do it first. Lu Xuanyu shook her head. You can't force a melon to be sweet. That guy is an alchemy genius, so he's definitely arrogant. If you threaten him, he'll definitely be conflicted. How could he possibly take things seriously? But Han Bing still wanted to persuade him. I know what I'm doing, Lu Xuanyu said lightly. Han Bing and Zhao Xiao did not speak again, but the expressions on their faces were filled with hatred. It was unknown what they had to hate Ling Han for. That night, Ling Han was slightly excited, though he had only entered the first natal palace for a few days. This was a prison, so he naturally felt a sense of pressure. The night passed, and after Ling Han finished cultivating, he immediately walked towards the main entrance. This time, the guard did not stop him, and instead said, You must return before midnight. Otherwise, we will report this to the Imperial Clan Court, and you will be listed as a fugitive. Ling Han nodded. These were the rules and regulations, and he had no intention of arguing with such a minor character. He strode out of the first natal palace. Under the same sky, after walking out of the high walls, Ling Han's mood suddenly relaxed. Time was short, and Ling Han's goal was clear. He did not go to meet up with the Empress and the others, but headed straight for the Saint Medicinal Hall. This was the Moonlight Planet's holy land of alchemy, and gathered the highest-level alchemists on the entire planet. The Saint Medicinal Hall's great elder, the Three-Medicine Old Man, was even conferred a noble title by the Azure Dragon Empire. He was a dignified first-rank duke, which was the highest noble title that someone with a different surname could obtain. Naturally, the Saint Medicinal Hall's status was extremely high. This was because the Three-Medicine Old Man was an Earth-grade high-level alchemist, and even sect master-level alchemists had to ask him to concoct pills for them. His status was naturally respected. Of course, he could not use his movement techniques in the city, nor could he use his kinesis tool to fly. This would be seen as a great disrespect, so Ling Han walked on foot. In any case, his speed was very fast. 20 minutes later, he arrived at the Saint Medicinal Hall. This was a splendid building complex that occupied a large area. There were many tall towers, some silver, some gold. Ling Han found out from the star web that the silver towers were for human-grade alchemists, while the gold towers were for earth-grade alchemists. Whether it was martial art, alchemy Dao, or array Dao, they were all strictly graded. He walked into the Saint Medicinal Hall with large strides. After entering, there was a large hall that had a large number of alchemy pills for sale. The employees here were all very arrogant. Although Ling Han was looking around, no one asked him what type of alchemy pills he needed. They all had an expression that said, "If you want to buy it, then don't." Ling Han had no intention of interacting with the employees. He directly passed through the hall and was about to enter the deeper region. "Idler, please stop." Someone immediately stopped him. Ling Han smiled. "I want to get certified as an alchemist." "You?" That person looked at Ling Han in surprise. Ling Han was too young, and he looked to be in his early 20s. Was there really such a young alchemist? However, the alchemist certification was open to everyone. As long as one provided their own materials, the Saint Medicinal Hall would provide an alchemy room. "All right, come with me." That person led Ling Han towards the back. "Don't look around. There are many alchemists here, and they hate being stared at. It's very rude," he reminded. Ling Han nodded and readily accepted the advice. They arrived at a very large room. There were many people inside, and they were all staring at a wall. This was a projection wall, and there was an alchemist currently concocting alchemy pills. Ling Han could tell with a single glance that this furnace of pills was about to be completed. The person who had led Ling Han in hurriedly jogged to the front and muttered something to someone. After a while he returned and said, Just wait here. Someone will arrange for you to go through the verification. All right. Ling Han sat down and closed his eyes to rest. He had no interest in the alchemy that was currently taking place. TCH, what are you pretending for? You've already come all the way here, and you're still resting with your eyes closed? Someone sneered. Ling Han was astonished. Was resting with my eyes closed a hindrance to you? That's right. Our Saint Medicinal Hall's #1 genius, Luo Jun, is breaking through to become an alchemist today. He specially invited everyone here to observe, but you're actually not paying attention, another person said to Ling Han, his tone somewhat stern. Luo Jun was only 29 years old this year, but he was extremely talented. He had only used 15 years to advance from beginner alchemy apprentice to high-rank alchemist, and now he was breaking through to become a low-rank mortal-level alchemist. This kind of talent was simply astonishing. Now Luo Jun was willing to allow everyone to observe his alchemy techniques. But you're actually still resting with your eyes closed? Are you trying to be pretentious, or are you intentionally mocking me? Chapter 3758. He closed his eyes and rested, and it was actually elevated to such a level. Ling Han shook his head, too lazy to pay attention to these people. But even if he didn't lower himself to their level, these people wouldn't let it go. 1 to 10, 10 to 100. Many people knew that there was a person here who didn't take Luo Jun seriously, closing his eyes and pretending to sleep while he was being certified as an alchemist. Since you're here, aren't you mocking me on purpose instead of watching others refine pills? Who is this person? I don't know him. Maybe he's a new apprentice who doesn't know Luo Jun's name. Yes, that must be it. Everyone nodded, certain that Ling Han must be a newbie who had just stepped into the door of alchemy. He didn't even know Luo Jun, the dazzling star. Ling Han pretended not to hear. Did he need to take other people's words to heart? Besides, as long as he started refining later, he could slap their faces one by one. It's done. Luo Jun completed the pill. Oh my god, a 29-year-old inferior human-grade alchemist. He set a new record. Yes, the previous youngest alchemist on Moonlight Planet was 31 years old. This time, not only did he set a new record, but he also pushed the limit of the youngest alchemist to 20 years old. As expected of Luo Jun, his future is limitless. Everyone cried out in surprise, all of them incomparably excited, as if they were the ones concocting pills inside. At this time, the alchemy room opened, and a young man walked out. It was Luo Jun, who had just been refining pills. Congratulations, Alchemist Luo. Congratulations. He'll definitely become a master in the future. Everyone squeezed up to congratulate him. Of course, they had to show their faces at this time. If Luo Jun remembered them, they might be able to get close to this genius alchemist. Haha, Brother Luo, congratulations. Amidst the long laughter, a man strode in. He was like a dragon or a tiger, exuding a shocking aura. His young Lord Tang Yan, the Tang clan's Qilin son, a genius in martial art. When he was born, he triggered a reaction from heaven and earth. He has an innate divine body. The Tang family is a force at the level of a spirit transformation perfected lord, and is deeply favored by His Majesty. Tang Yan was conferred the title of Marquis the moment he was born. Although it is partly because of his innate divine body, it is also because the Tang family is favored by the emperor. Everyone cried out in alarm. This young man walking over was not simple at all. A thought flashed through Ling Han's mind. The prodigy of the Tang clan? He also walked up. Of course, he wasn't heading for Tang Yan. He wanted to immediately start the alchemist certification. Who is this kid? What are you squeezing? Some people still did not recognize Ling Han, and were very displeased to see him pushing his way forward. Ling Han squeezed his way forward. The people here were basically all in the Foundation establishment realm, so who could stop him? Shall we begin? He asked. There were 3 human-grade alchemists here, who were in charge of being witnesses. They naturally knew that there was another person who was going to be certified as an alchemist, and the expressions on their faces were not very pleasant. Damn, they just stared at it for 3 hours, and they still want them to continue? However, with such a young fellow, he would probably fail the furnace very soon. All right, let's begin. Someone nodded. What pill are you going to refine? Another person asked. Ling Han smiled slightly. Foundation transforming pill. Instantly, there was silence, and then roars of laughter rang out. Ha ha ha, this is too funny. An alchemist who has not even reached human grade actually said he would refine a foundation transforming pill? Where did his courage come from? Tang Yin and Luo Jun had already walked some distance away and did not hear Ling Han's words. They only discovered the crowd's roars of laughter, which made Tang Yin a little curious. He asked, "What's going on?" "Oh, an idiot came to certify a low-level alchemist, and actually said he would refine a foundation transforming pill," the alchemy apprentice on the side replied while laughing. Luo Jun immediately sneered. Foundation transforming pill. Even he did not dare to think about it, because geniuses who could refine foundation transforming pills had the possibility of becoming heaven-grade alchemists in the future. He's just playing to the gallery. "Brother Tang, let's go," Luo Jun said. Tang Yin, however, was interested. There's no harm in watching. Since he had already said so, Luo Jun naturally could not say anything else. Although he was a genius alchemist, the degree of genius could not be compared to Tang Yan's family background. Therefore, in the interaction between the two, he was naturally in a weaker position and needed to follow Tang Yan's will. The alchemy apprentice on the side added vinegar and said that Ling Han had deliberately closed his eyes to rest, deliberately stirring up hatred. Luo Jun's face was gloomy, but he said indifferently, "Everyone has their own freedom. No one begs him to watch." Tang Yin laughed loudly. This guy seems to have quite a personality. Luo Jun did not expect Tang Yin to give such an evaluation of Ling Han. He was stunned for a moment, then said embarrassedly, "Yes, yes." There was a ball of fire burning in his heart, and he wanted to drag Ling Han out and beat him up. Who was he? Genius alchemist Luo Jun, the person who set the record for the youngest alchemist on Moonlight Planet. You, a nobody, actually dared to be so arrogant. On the other side, Ling Han also began to refine pills. There was a ready-made array and alchemy furnace here, which saved Ling Han some trouble. He activated the array, and with a wave of his hands, one medicinal ingredient after another was thrown into the alchemy furnace by him. Boom! The energy of heaven and earth surged. For Ling Han, he had been refining foundation transformation pills these days, so he was very familiar with it. His movements were as smooth as flowing water. Outside, the crowd originally had the thought of watching a joke, but as they watched, they were stunned. Damn, so smooth. Are you really here to be certified as an alchemist? Are you sure you're not an old alchemist who has already reached this threshold? But looking at Ling Han's appearance, everyone shook their heads. He was so young, definitely younger than Luo Jun. How could he be an old alchemist? Everyone could not help but look at Luo Jun. This person had just set the record for the youngest alchemist on Moonlight Planet. Was he going to be broken in the blink of an eye? If such a thing really happened, then Luo Jun would become a joke. In the future, he would also become a foil, and his name might even be passed down through the ages. The shortest-lived record holder in history would be extremely embarrassing. Luo Jun's expression was extremely ugly. If Ling Han really succeeded, not to mention anything else, just based on the foundation transformation pill that he was refining, he could kill him in a second. Foundation transformation pill. Becoming a high-level Earth-grade alchemist was a sure thing. Throughout history, there had never been an exception, and there were even some who became heaven-grade alchemists, which was passed down through the ages. Tang Yan, on the other hand, showed a look of anticipation. If Ling Han could really refine the foundation transformation pill, he was very willing to make friends with him. He did not know alchemy, but looking at Ling Han's skilled technique, he was naturally full of confidence in Ling Han. This person might really succeed. An hour passed, and Ling Han was still refining methodically. 2 hours later, the situation was still the same. Everyone could not sit still. This was really the rhythm of pill formation. Damn, they were still mocking Ling Han just now, but now they were going to be slapped in the face. Chapter 3760. Ling Han smiled faintly. That's easy. You're really from the First Natal Palace? Tang Yin was still somewhat incredulous. Which force would be willing to take out such an alchemy genius as a hostage? One had to know that a genius, who could refine the foundation transformation pill, could at least become a high-level Earth-grade alchemist in the future. And what kind of concept was such an existence? Someone that even sect master-level alchemists would treat with respect. It was really strange, and completely incomprehensible. Indeed, if Ling Han was really just an ordinary alchemist, then he would definitely be protected by Chun Fengyan in every way possible. Even if he had to use his own son as a hostage, it would be impossible for him to hand over Ling Han. An alchemist with a boundless future had too much influence on a force. But who asked Ling Han's identity to be so powerful? He was Chun Fengyan's uncle. If he said he wanted to come here, would Chun Fengyan dare to stop him? Wouldn't he be afraid that Brother Monkey would come back and beat him up until he doubted his life? Ling Han nodded. Yes, I just arrived 10 days ago. Which planet? Heavenly Ocean Planet. Oh. Tang Yin nodded. So it was that declining planet. The natives had just set foot on the path of martial art. If it weren't for the fact that the originally imprisoned criminals had all escaped, this planet would probably still be in the stage of martial arts development. He thought about it and said solemnly, Don't worry, I will definitely let you move out of the First Natal Palace as soon as possible. This was what Ling Han wanted, so he didn't deliberately be polite and nodded. Thank you. The two looked at each other and smiled, having a kind of tacit understanding. Tang Yan's first words were what Ling Han wanted, and Ling Han didn't pretend to be polite. Although a thank you was simple, did Tang Yan really want to listen to Ling Han's long speech? He only wanted Ling Han's favor. Taking advantage of the fact that Ling Han was still a low-level human-grade alchemist, he wanted to build the foundation of friendship. Especially now that Ling Han was in trouble, it was obviously different for him to lend a helping hand at this time. Sending charcoal in snowy weather and adding flowers to brocade were two completely different meanings. A new alchemist had successfully concocted a foundation transformation pill, and this naturally alarmed the entire Saint Medicine Hall. Regardless of the level of alchemists, as long as they were in the Saint Medicine Hall, they would all rush out to congratulate Ling Han upon hearing the news. Although Ling Han was only a human-grade low-level alchemist now, his future prospects were too bright, so they had no choice but to lower their pride. Ling Han did not put on airs. Firstly, he was not that kind of person. Secondly, he only had high potential. But in this world, there were many people with great potential who died prematurely. Therefore, it was better to keep a low profile, because there were always some people in this world who were narrow-minded. Even if there was no enmity between them, they would still step on you out of jealousy. Therefore, before he became powerful, he had to keep a low profile. On the other hand, Ling Han concocted the foundation transformation pill right from the get-go, which was actually already extremely high profile. If it was not related to his freedom, he actually did not want to be exposed. Wouldn't it be better to silently strike it rich? In this way, it was not until night-time that Ling Han finally finished dealing with everyone. This was also because Tang Yin spoke on his behalf. Otherwise, he would probably be busy until late at night. Ling Han had an appointment with Tang Yin. In a few days, Tang Yin would go to the First Natal Palace to see him. It was not that Ling Han was putting on airs, but he only had 1 day of freedom. How could he go see Tang Yin? Hee, then I'll see you another day, Tang Yin said with a smile. He was extremely happy. Ling Han nodded. See you another day. He left the Saint Medicinal Hall and returned to the First Natal Palace. He had to return before dawn, or else he would be considered to have violated the country's laws. As he walked, he suddenly caught a glimpse of someone staring at him out of the corner of his eye. He did not think much of it. After all, he was currently a rising star of alchemy. Being recognized by others was a normal thing. However, that person's behavior was a bit strange. After looking at Ling Han a few times, he suddenly turned and ran, quickly disappearing without a trace. Ha! Ling Han could not help but mutter in his heart. This reaction was not right. Whatever, he would return to the hostage palace first. After walking for a while, he entered a small alleyway. Because it was already late, and this place was remote, everyone closed the doors, and it was incomparably quiet. There was not a single person to be seen. Ling Han naturally would not be afraid. He walked with large strides, but he only took a few steps before he stopped. Xiao, a figure swiftly chased from behind, leaped over his head and landed in front of him, blocking his path. Ling Han used his eye sorcery, and with just a glance, he knew the other's cultivation level. It was only the ultimate foundation establishment. I finally found you. The person gritted his teeth and said darkly. Ling Han was shocked. I killed your father. My father is perfectly fine. The person immediately rebuked. Then did I kill your son? Ling Han asked again. I haven't had children yet. The person was led astray again. Ling Han shook his head. Since you didn't kill your son or father, I don't understand why you look like you want to skin me alive. My surname is Pang, the person said hatefully. Oh, Ling Han finally understood. Previously, when he was refining the 5 elements fortune pill, he had once killed many members of the Pang family, and had even killed a foundation establishment cultivator of the Pang family. He smiled. That genius of your family, what's his name again? Did he eat the 5 elements fortune pill and advance to the foundation establishment realm? It would have been better if Ling Han had not mentioned this, but once he did, that person became even more furious. The Pang family had spared no expense and paid an astonishing amount of wealth to gather all the ingredients for the 5 elements reincarnation pill. In the end, after it was refined and consumed by Pang Yunfei, not only did it not help Pang Yunfei advance, but it also caused a huge problem. They found an alchemist to study the medicinal dregs, and finally found the source of the problem. One of the ingredients did not meet the standard, and it was the crystal yuan that they had forcefully seized. They were depressed to death. Back then, in order to take advantage of the situation, they had bought the crystal yuan at an extremely low price, thinking that they had taken advantage of the situation. Who would have thought that this would lead to a disaster? Now, the Pang family had paid a huge price, and Pang Yunfei's body had a huge problem. Who could they complain to? If this person knew that the main culprit was Ling Han, he would probably want to eat him alive. Die! The person brazenly attacked, grabbing at Ling Han. Ling Han shook his head, smiled, and said, Before you make your move, have you forgotten to investigate my abilities first? You've only just advanced to the foundation establishment realm, the person said disdainfully. Was there even a need to investigate? He could understand with a single glance. Boom! His hand had already reached, but in order not to alarm the bystanders, he compressed his strength as much as possible, almost not spilling out. Otherwise, the houses here would all collapse in an instant. Ling Han stretched out his hand, grabbing at the other's wrist. You overestimate yourself. The person sneered, but his expression changed in an instant, because his wrist really had landed in Ling Han's hand. He struggled for a moment, only to feel as if his hand had been forged with top-grade immortal metal, and he could not pull it out at all. How was this possible? He was so shocked that his scalp turned numb, and he felt an indescribable fear. Chapter 3761. Do you regret it now? Ling Han asked. The man gritted his teeth and didn't answer. He really did regret it. He thought that Ling Han was easy to bully, since he had just entered the foundation establishment realm. He came alone after receiving the news, but he didn't expect that he wouldn't be a match for Ling Han. If I told you that the person who sold the crystal to you was me, would your eyeballs fall out of your sockets? Ling Han asked, smiling. The man was startled, and his first reaction was that it was impossible. But then he thought about it again. The matter of the Pang family being cheated wasn't known to the public, and the number of people who knew about it was limited. More importantly, only the higher-ups of the Pang family knew about the problem with the crystal yuan. It was only because his grandfather was a cauldron forging expert that he found out about it by chance. If Ling Han wasn't the person involved, how could he know a secret that even the majority of the Pang family didn't know? It's you. His eyes were spitting fire. Pang Yunfei should have already entered the foundation establishment realm. With his monstrous talent, he would definitely be ranked in the top 100,000 of Star Web in the future. On Heavenly Starcy, he would definitely be one of the best. However, the future hope of the Pang family had been extinguished by Ling Han. "You're despicable. You're shameless," he roared angrily. Ling Han shook his head. "Before you scold others, first reflect on whether you have such a position. Why? You can chase me, but you can't even let me fight back? Don't worry, the Pang family won't exist for long. I'll destroy it with my own hands." "You're dreaming." The man raised his head. Although he couldn't withstand a single blow, Ling Han was just a small Foundation establishment realm cultivator. What kind of existence was the Pang family? They had ancestor Shengdan in charge. "Come on, let's see how you die," he provoked Ling Han. "Don't worry, that day won't be too far away." Ling Han reached out and pressed his hand on the man's forehead. A huge amount of mystic force immediately surged into the man's sea of consciousness. "What do you want to do?" Ling Han completely ignored him. He only lightly shook the 2 immortal Dao Foundation stones in his body. The effects were immediately apparent. Multiple cracks appeared on that person's immortal foundation, as if it hadn't been repaired for a long time. What? That person's face was ashen. How was this possible? He didn't even release his immortal foundation. How could it collapse? It must be an illusion. But that was not the case. Crack, crack, crack. The cracks on the human immortal foundation grew more and more severe. Finally, it couldn't hold on any longer. It shattered into pieces and then collapsed, turning back into the energy of heaven and earth, and the mysterious martial art enlightenment. "No," he screamed. Now that his immortal foundation had been destroyed, he had fallen from foundation establishment to the mortal realm. He had to cross the gate of immortality and establish his immortal foundation again. However, this was not the end. Ling Han's secret power was still surging within his body, shattering his meridians, secret realms, and apertures one by one. In this way, that person would be a complete mortal, except that their lifespan would be slightly longer. But without his cultivation, his lifespan wouldn't be much longer than that of an ordinary person. Moreover, he had already lived for more than 200 years. At most, he could live for another 10 or so years. He had originally been in his prime, but now he had to count the days and wait for death. He was even a cripple. How could he accept this in such a short time? He was in a daze, and he seemed to be at a loss. "Don't worry. In your lifetime, the Pang clan will definitely be destroyed," Ling Han said. Through these words, he expressed a strong confidence. What kind of power was the Pang clan? The life core realm. Thus, to destroy the Pang clan, one naturally needed a life core realm cultivation. And the Pang clan member could still live for a few more years, a dozen or so years. In other words, Ling Han was confident that he could advance to the life core realm within a dozen or so years. If others knew about this, they would definitely say that he was too arrogant. Which life core realm cultivator didn't advance to the life core realm when they were several hundred years old? You wanted to advance to the life core realm in a dozen or so years. Wasn't that too arrogant? Ling Han patted that person's shoulder. "Take care." After he finished speaking, he leaped up and disappeared into the distance. That person from the Pang clan instantly sat on the ground. His name was Pang Firen. He wasn't considered a genius in the Pang clan, but it was naturally very impressive that he could advance to the immortal path. "Did you all see and hear that?" he said, his voice filled with a sobbing tone. Just now, he had turned on the recording function of the device. Everything he saw and heard would be transmitted to the Pang clan. Originally, this was to let the Pang clan see their enemy being killed. Never would they have thought that things would actually develop in the opposite direction. On the other side, the Pang clan had naturally exploded. Previously, they had connected the recording and projected it for their juniors to see. Of course, they had to participate in such an event to vent their anger. Just when Pang Firen was crippled, the Pang clan had already informed the Cauldron Cast expert, and the clan's only life core old ancestor. In a virtual space on the star web, the Pang clan members were all sitting upright with cold and furious expressions. "Who can tell me, why does that brat have such high battle prowess? The Pang clan's life core old ancestor slammed the table, so angry that even his beard was trembling. This brat had already caused the Pang clan to lose 2 Foundation Establishment realm cultivators. One was killed, and the other was crippled. If Pang Yunfei was included, that would be a total of 3 people. How many existences on the immortal path did the Pang clan have in total? Everyone was speechless. Before, Ling Han was only at the enlightening realm, but how long had it been? Not only had he advanced to the Foundation Establishment realm, but he could even easily kill an extreme Foundation Establishment realm cultivator. One of them revealed a focused expression and said, "I just received news that despicable brat is from the hostage manor. His name is Ling Han, and he comes from the Black North country of the Heavenly Ocean Star. Previously, he refined the Foundation Establishment pill at the St. Medic Hall, and became a pill master there. He's highly respected." "What?" everyone exclaimed. "This brat is actually a pill master? No. He's a pill Dao genius." "So what if he's a pill Dao genius? Since he's a great enemy of our Pang clan, he can only be destroyed," the Pang clan's old ancestor said coldly. Everyone's discussion stopped, and they all nodded. Ling Han had also expressed that he wanted to destroy the Pang clan. Both sides were already in a situation where they wouldn't rest until one of them was dead. "We definitely can't give this brat any more room to grow," a cast tripod realm cultivator from the Pang clan said. His name was Pang Tong, and he was Pang Firen's grandfather. He naturally hated Ling Han even more. "That's right." Another white-haired elder nodded. "That despicable brat is a pill Dao genius. If he becomes an Earth-grade pill master, then he just has to stand there and wave his arm. And there will definitely be many true self-realm martial artists who will fight for him. By then, our Pang clan will really be in danger. But our Pang clan doesn't have any power in the capital. What can we do to him?" Someone raised the most realistic question. The Pang clan wasn't even in the capital. "Go ask the Tang clan for help," the Pang clan's old ancestor suddenly said. Back then, the Tang clan was once a member of our Pang clan. When the Pang clan declined, the Tang clan's ancestor went far away to the capital. Although there hasn't been much improvement, there are still life core realm martial artists. I will ask the Tang clan for help, and ask them to send experts to kill that despicable brat. Chapter 3762. The members of the Pang family nodded, but their expressions were very solemn. The Tang family owed the Pang family a favor, so as long as the Pang family asked, the Tang family would definitely be too embarrassed to say no if it was just to deal with a Foundation Establishment cultivator. However, favors were something that could only be used once. If they wanted to trouble the Tang family again in the future, it would not be a matter of just saying a word. "That damned bastard," the elders of the Pang family said hatefully. "Go and bring Firen back first," the patriarch of the Pang family continued. The old ancestor of the Long clan continued. "If the conditions allow it, we'll capture him alive. I have a feeling that this kid might be hiding a huge secret. This might be a turning point for our Long clan." Hearing this, the members of the Pang family finally revealed a hint of joy. Yes, Ling Han was unbelievably powerful. This kid definitely had a shocking secret. If the Pang family could obtain it, it might be a blessing in disguise. We must not let the Tang family know about Ling Han's background. Yes, ask them to capture him alive. Even if they can't, they have to bring his corpse back. They spoke one after another, clearly very excited. However, they forgot one thing. Ling Han was in the Jia natal residence. Even the Tang family would not dare to barge into the Jia natal residence to kill and kidnap people. This was a great humiliation to the Meng dynasty. Even the Tang family would not dare to do so. They were only returning a favor. How could they be willing to sacrifice their entire family? Ling Han returned to the Jia natal residence. It was still a little before midnight. He stood at the door for a while before stepping into the residence. Although Tang Yin promised to get him out very soon, that was a matter for the future. Ling Han returned to his residence. Before he could rest, he heard a servant report that Lu Xuanyu wanted to see him. So late? Ling Han thought about it and said, "Please." He sat down in the living room. After a while, he saw a servant leading Lu Xuanyu over. "Greetings, Captain Lu." Ling Han stood up and cupped his hands in greeting. Lu Xuanyu smiled sweetly. "How does freedom feel?" "Very good." Ling Han nodded. Indeed, those who had not lost their freedom could not imagine how precious freedom was. Lu Xuanyu was very satisfied with Ling Han's answer. She asked again, "Then, do you want to continue to be free?" Ling Han's eyes widened. What did that mean? "As long as you work for me with sincerity, I can guarantee you that you will get the privilege of going out for one day every month," Lu Xuanyu said unhurriedly with a strong sense of confidence. For people like them who had lost their freedom and had a brief taste of freedom, their desire for freedom was naturally greater than anything else. This was a huge temptation. Lu Xuanyu did not believe that Ling Han could resist it. Ling Han smiled. "What do you mean by doing things sincerely?" "Give me 10 transforming foundation dawn every day." Lu Xuanyu finally revealed her true colors. "You don't have to worry about the herbs. I will prepare them for you. You just need to refine the pills." For her, the usefulness of the transforming foundation pill was too great. She did not intend to sell it. Instead, she wanted to use it to befriend those true spoiled brats and enter the top circles of the capital. Ling Han shook his head. "Sorry, I cannot accept this condition." Lu Xuanyu smiled, seemingly not angry. "Then what if I am included?" "HM?" Ling Han looked at Lu Xuanyu in surprise. What did she mean? "As long as you work for me, I will be yours," Lu Xuanyu said in a seductive tone. Her peach blossom eyes seemed to be covered by a layer of mist. Ling Han seemed to understand why she was the leader, even though there were 2 other casting cauldrons here. Moreover, they were all hostages. How could she fight for a day for everyone? She had even said that as long as Ling Han listened to her, he could go out for a day every month. Was the Imperial clan court owned by her? She was just a casting cauldron. On Moonlight Star, such a person could not even be called an expert. How could she be so confident? However, if she used beauty as bait, then it was different. "So dirty." Ling Han felt disgusted and said indifferently, "Please conduct yourself with dignity." Lu Xuanyu was surprised. She did not expect Ling Han to reject her. Firstly, she was a beauty among beauties. Secondly, they were all locked up here and could not come into contact with women. Was she going to make a move on those aunties, who were over 40 years old? Now that she was willing to throw herself into his arms, he was actually not moved at all. "I am at the Cast Tripod realm. Have you played with women of this realm before?" Lu Xuanyu tempted him. Ling Han scoffed. This woman still had the cheek to say that he was at the Cast Tripod realm. She was simply a chick, and she still spared no effort to promote herself. "I am going to rest. Please go back." He stood up and walked straight to his bedroom. Lu Xuanyu did not move, but her pretty face turned extremely cold. She was rejected. She was actually rejected. This was something that had never happened before. Furthermore, the person who rejected her was only at the foundation building realm. If not for the fact that you still have some value to me, I would not have let you off just because you humiliated me." She gritted her teeth and said, "From tomorrow onwards, you will know the consequences of going against me. I wonder how long you can last." She snorted and walked away. The next morning, Ling Han cultivated under the sunlight. He realized that cultivating under the sunlight would allow him to advance a little faster. Even though it was only a little. Under the sunlight, the energy of heaven and earth would be more energetic. However, this had never been shown before when he was cultivating. Could it be because he had changed his cultivation to the heavenly ancient yang art? After Ling Han finished his cultivation, a servant came to find him. He had an ugly expression on his face. "Young Master Han, I did not receive the cultivation resources for today. I did not even receive 3 meals a day," he said. "Huh? So soon?" Ling Han knew that since he had rejected Lu Xuanyu, she would definitely take revenge on him. However, he did not expect it to be so soon. "Hehe, you have the power to distribute resources, and you're abusing it." Ling Han nodded. "I understand. Young Master Han." The servant could not help but say, "Why don't you lower your head to Lord Lu?" This old servant heard that Lord Lu is on good terms with a certain important person in the Imperial clan court. Ling Han frowned. Since when did the people around him become lobbyists? You may leave. He waved his hand. Han. The servant still wanted to persuade him. Leave, Ling Han said sternly. The servant had no choice but to leave. However, his gaze towards Ling Han was clearly filled with dissatisfaction. You are at the foundation building realm, so you will not die as long as you absorb the energy of heaven and earth. But what about us? We are only mortals. Without food, what can we eat? He left hatefully. He wanted to join the other two servants in a strike. Chapter 3764. I am Tang Yan. Tang Yan said in a low voice. And I am Lu Yan. The guard retorted. This was the hostage manor. He was a guard of the hostage manor, which meant he was part of the imperial court. Even if he met some young masters of small clans, he dared to scold them. Who dared to touch the people of the imperial court? Did they want to rebel? Pa. Just as he finished speaking, that guard was slapped. He turned his head and wanted to scold him, but when he saw that person's appearance, he immediately cowered and smiled. Boss. The one who slapped him was the boss of the guards, and also the only foundation establishment. His face was full of smiles, as if flowers were about to bloom. He ignored his lackeys and only smiled at Tang Yan. Little lord, this guy just joined the army. He is just a country bumpkin. He doesn't have good eyesight. Please don't take it to heart. What? That guard couldn't help but turn pale with fright. Little lord. In the imperial capital, there was only one little lord, and that was the Tang clan's Qilin's son Tang Yan. He couldn't help but tremble. If Tang Yan wanted to deal with him, he wouldn't even know he was dead. Tang Yan didn't change his expression and only said, I cannot enter. Of course you can, of course you can. The guard leader hurriedly smiled. Not to mention the hostage manor. Even if it was the imperial clan manor, this little lord would probably dare to barge in. Tang Yan flicked his sleeves and walked into the hostage manor with large steps. Only then did that guard heave a sigh of relief. He only felt his back was covered in cold sweat. Little Lord's aura was really frightening, he thought to himself. But why did this lord suddenly come to the hostage manor? Ling Han! A shout was heard from outside the door. Ling Han had just finished cultivating not too long ago. After so many days, he was also about to cultivate his heaven-building foundation to perfection. The second celestial Dao foundation was already not much different from the first. In about another 10 days or so, he would be able to reach perfection. Because of this, his mood was not bad. He could sweep away all extreme foundation establishment at heaven foundation establishment. Then after advancing to extreme foundation establishment, could he rival caste cauldrons? Even the weakest caste cauldrons. However, this shout greatly affected Ling Han's good mood. Without servants, Ling Han could only go out by himself. He opened the door and saw Lu Xuanyu, Han Bing, and Zhao Xiao standing outside, all looking at him coldly. "What are you doing? You came to see me so early," Ling Han said calmly. "It hasn't been easy these past few days, right?" Lu Xuanyu smiled sweetly. "No servants to serve me, no cultivation resources, no materials to refine pills. This is what you call a true prisoner." Ling Han smiled. "It's very peaceful. Don't worry too much." Han Bing said coldly. "We don't have the patience to wait for you. You only have two choices today. Either you listen to us obediently, or we will beat you up every day on this basis. I know you are invincible in the foundation establishment realm, but in front of the three of us who are at the caste tripod realm, what are you?" Zhao Zhao's expression was equally cold. "Let's not talk about anything else. Once we bring out our immortal cauldrons, even standing is a luxury for you." Han Bing continued. He released his own immortal cauldron, which appeared above his head and enlarged. Buzz! The bronze immortal cauldron was ancient and full of holiness. The caste cauldron was divided into 3 minor realms: human cauldron, earth cauldron, and heaven cauldron. It was easy to differentiate them. Human cauldron was 1 cauldron, earth cauldron was 2, and heaven cauldron was 3. However, it was said that this was not the limit of the caste cauldron. Just like the enlightenment realm, one could break through to the mystic-seeking realm by opening at least 36 acupoints. Cultivating 3 cauldrons would indeed allow one to break through to the life core realm. However, the caste tripod realm could also cultivate 4, 5, or even 9 cauldrons. Since ancient times, those who could cultivate 4 cauldrons were considered geniuses. 8 cauldrons were considered peerless geniuses. As for 9 cauldrons, haha, there might not even be one in hundreds of thousands of years. Such people had the potential to become sages. Han Bing took out a cauldron, which meant that he was only standing on the first step of the immortal cauldron, the human cauldron realm. Furthermore, his cauldron only had 2 legs, which meant that he had not reached the perfection realm of the human cauldron. Where did the immortal cauldron come from? This was the foundation of the immortal path. That was why the immortal cauldron looked bronze, silver, or gold. It was directly related to the foundation stone of the immortal path that was formed after the spring immortal's door. A bronze immortal cauldron. Haha, this was the weakest immortal cauldron. But wouldn't a caste cauldron absolutely crush a foundation establishment realm cultivator? Ling Han stood upright and unafraid. Not even the hem of his robes fluttered in the wind. Lu Xuanyu and the other 2 were shocked. How was this possible? The immortal cauldron had no effect on a foundation establishment realm cultivator? No matter how weak the immortal cauldron was, it was still an immortal cauldron. In terms of the immortal path, it could crush a foundation establishment realm cultivator. Something's wrong, Zhao Xiao said. His eyes were burning with greed. He believed that Ling Han definitely had an astonishing secret hidden on him. Merely that screen of starlight was enough to make him extremely envious. And now, added with the fact that Ling Han did not fear the suppression of the celestial cauldron, it made him even more convinced that it was extremely likely that Ling Han had obtained the inheritance of an ancient elite. If you don't listen, just take him down. He took large strides towards Ling Han. He wanted to take down Ling Han as soon as possible and search his soul. This involved making himself stronger. So he naturally tossed Lu Xuanyu aside and placed himself first. Ling Han shivered. He had not reached the peak foundation establishment realm. So he did not even have the qualifications to fight against the weakest caste cauldron. Even if he did reach the peak foundation establishment realm, he would not know if he could fight against a caste cauldron. Could it be that he had to use the heavenly Tao flame? Ling Han was somewhat depressed. His trump card was too powerful. It could easily burn supremacies to death. Could it be that he did not have a trump card that could deal with the caste cauldron? What are you trying to do? A cold laugh rang out, carrying with it a sinister chill. Tang Yin, when Ling Han saw this, he could not help but smile. Very good. There was no need for him to reveal his trump card. Who do you think you are? Han Bing rebuked. Lu Xuanyu also took a glance, and her charming face changed. Different from Han Bing and Zhao Xiao, she was a smooth and slick person, and had great ambitions. Thus, she had some understanding of the important successors of the Azure Dragon Empire, and the descendants of the various great clans. Even if she had not seen them in person, she would have seen images of them. It was unlikely that she would not recognize them after seeing them in person. This was Tang Yin, the top of the second generation. He was conferred the title of Marquis at birth, and he was the only one in the Azure Dragon Empire with such a special appearance. Shut up, Lu Xuanyu quickly reprimanded. This is young Marquis Tang Yin. Do not be impudent. When Han Bing heard this, his heart instantly trembled. He had never seen Tang Yin before, but he must have heard of such a person in the imperial capital. I am sorry, young Marquis. He quickly put on a humble attitude. Tang Yin walked over with large strides and suddenly raised his hand, slapping at Han Bing. Out of instinct, Han Bing quickly dodged to the side. Tang Yan's slap missed, and his face revealed an awe-inspiring expression as he said, "Try dodging again." After speaking, he raised his hand again. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.